What is good, everybody? What is good? Still waiting on my guest to arrive. So give him a few minutes to get in here. Sent the link yesterday. Yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. Here he is. He is here. He is in the house. Let me bring him upon the screen. Hello, Captain Crunch. How are you?
How's it going?
Good. Snap, crackle, and pop. All right. I want you guys to welcome my very, very, very special guest, Blackbird 451 in the house. How are you doing today, sir?
I am good.
I like your studio.
Oh, thank you.
Looks
This
very
is yeah. It's just this is really just a divider that I use in my
just a
home.
fold out.
Yeah.
Keep
Oh,
the
and
enemies
there
away.
it goes.
Keep the enemies away.
Keep the enemies away.
So, how was your weekend?
My weekend was pretty good.
Good, good,
Yeah.
good, good. There have been lots of people looking forward to this discussion, and I have been too. I've been quite excited about this, considering our sordid past. Uh,
Yes.
for
Yes.
people who are unaware of the dynamic that Mr. Blackbird and I have had, our interactions have been mostly limited to TikTok. And
Yes.
if you know TikTok, it can be quite divisive on many fronts. And him and I have had our altercations on there, everything from name calling to get out of my face. Um, but within the last month or so, we have come to a uh, ground where we can actually have discourse, and that has been kind of refreshing for me. That there's been growth on, I think, both sides that we can get to this point. So
Right.
I put forth to Mr. Bird the opportunity to have a discussion about science and religion and the existence of God and morality and all that good stuff. And so he has um, obliged us with having this discussion. Um, no, I have not had this guest before. This is brand new. This is a groundbreaking opportunity for me to discuss something with a person that was once my enemy. Enemy. Um, so I'm trying to I want to get some ground rules and stuff set up before we begin.
Absolutely.
My question: do you want to go first in your presentation, or would you like me to go first? I prefer if you would went first, since you're the guest.
Right.
Lay
So
your
let's
case out, and
how about we set the ground rules first
hmm
and then we can go into opening statements.
okay. So let's do a. I give people lots of time. I don't care how long you take, because I don't have a limit on my show.
Sure.
Um, and I don't care how long you take to say what you got to say. That's the longer you take, the better, because that means you get to say your point.
Right.
Um, how about we say 6 minutes for opening? Um, and we'll get some. If there's anything in your statement or my statement that you want to rebut or talk about, you can, and then I go into mine 6 minutes, and then we have the open ground discussion.
Sure.
We can take guests questions from the audience as needed, if we need to as well. I'll give you the full screen to have your time as well. So um,
Okay.
if you want to get going, then feel free, and I'll be quiet.
Sure. So today, let's see, we're going to be talking about science versus religion. I just want to start off saying that I am not a scientist. However, I used to be grounded pretty much in religion in my past life, I would say, and I stepped away from Christianity and religion altogether. Maybe I don't know, 10 or so years ago, and have taken a more pragmatic approach to how I view the world. Me and Marlon, Marlo, have had our differences in the past. Primarily, my areas of specialty that I speak about that I'm most knowledgeable on is systemic racism, um, issues involving societal things, Black Lives Matter, stuff like that. I primarily talk about science in and of itself is not particularly my field, but I think that I can make an argument for science against religion on the existence of morality and where it comes from a philosophical standpoint. And that's where I will be looking to make my argument from. Um, I think that this is going to be less of trying to prove or disprove the existence of God. I don't think that that could be done by no man or woman on the planet. Um, so I don't think this debate will be necessarily about whether or not God exists or not, but more so about where does morality come from? If there is a God, is morality grounded in God's existence? And if there's not, how do we ground the existence of morality in science and in philosophy? So that's where I will be making my stance from. And I'm done, Marlon. I need the full 6 minutes.
All right. Okay. Okay. Good. Good. I don't have anything to add to that. I'll just go with mine. Um, so my take on this thing is, I'm not out to prove God either, because he's not asking me to do that. He's just asked me to believe, and so there is no proof that is needed for me to bring scientifically to, but I can. Um, Secondly, the case of morality in this instance is one that cannot be based in man, and so I'll be going about this um, from a philosophical point of view as well, to investigate on my end the origin and base for human morality in the world. Because from that, you can branch out to just about any human interaction, political interaction, and social interaction that you can think of if you have a basis for morality. The world as we know it has been under a lot of contention as to its origin, um, as to how man interacts with everything, with each other, more so with each other. And we have become a nation and a world of answers based on nothing versus questions based on nothing. That makes any sense. We don't ever ask anymore. We just assume that we know. And I want to take this opportunity to kind of make a case for asking more questions than anything else. So I'm hoping that after this discussion is over, we'll have at least a more directed path for whichever side you pick, whether that be the I don't believe in God and a God based morality, or I don't believe in man or a man based morality. So we'll have a pretty good discussion. I think it'll end up branching off into just about every facet of life from then on. So um, that is that. So um, questions? Do you have any for me? Because I have quite a few for you.
I don't mind if you start.
So you had mentioned that you said that you had come from a religious background. I don't necessarily care what background that is, because religion in and of itself is not what I follow. I don't follow religion. Religion is more of a measuring stick for man to figure how much better man is than man. Um,
I have a question for you about that.
mhm,
Actually, I
mhm.
would hate to interrupt, but I
No, go ahead.
often, when I was a Christian myself, I often heard that Christianity is not a religion,
Hmm.
and I would push back on that. I believe that Christianity is a religion. It follows all of the secular rules involved in what a religion is. But some people say that religion, well, things that were taught to me was that Christianity is not a religion. It is simply the emulation of Christ or being
Hmm.
Christ-like. How do you feel about that?
Yes, it is a relationship as opposed to religion. A religion follows a set of rules and the rules only, and that's how you dictate your interaction with God. Christianity does not base itself on the rules of the relationship. It bases on the actual It's kind of like a marriage. Just because I have a piece of paper and that's the only reason I'm with my wife is because of that piece of paper. And as long as I stay within the confines of that piece of paper, I love my wife. That's not how the love goes in a marriage, and that's not how you make a flourishing relationship with your wife. It's the exact same concept, or even with your kids, as just because I'm your parent doesn't mean that all I do is say, hey, or I feed you, give you a place to sleep, and that's it. That's not the extent of my parenting. That's not how I show love to my kid. So with religion, you have a very set of rules. It doesn't waver. And if you don't follow those rules, you're no longer in that relationship. That is not how Christianity functions. It functions based on the connection that you have with God and the maintenance of that relationship because of love.
Right. Okay. So I will. I think I'll prefer for you to continue your points, and I will rebut afterwards. I really don't want this to be a conversation where we're interrupting each other.
Yeah, no problem.
I've
This
grown
is
very much tired of those debates.
Yeah, yeah, and and like I said, my platform is a little bit different than most people. Okay, TikTok, I can't stand it because I have a lot of people that just parrot in and interrupt it in the chat, and
Right.
um, so what this is more so a free platform, and I don't have the risk of people going into TikTok and saying report and shut me down. Say we don't have that problem here.
Right.
So interrupt as politely as you can, but interrupt as you see fit if you
Sure.
have questions.
Okay. So you start off with Christianity is not a religion; it's a relationship. You can continue from there, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
So my questions are: so you said you were a Christian,
I was.
um, and it was about 10 years ago.
Yes.
Um, what was the first thing that happened that made you not just question, but question to the point of leaving it?
Well, I wouldn't say there was a first thing. It was many things over the
Mhm.
course of my life that brought me away from Christianity. Ever since I was a children, I often questioned the contradictions of the Bible and its teachings and God since I was very young.
Mhm.
I would say things like, "Oh, well, if Christ is the only way to get to heaven, and only knowing Him is the only way to get to heaven, then what about people who were born, in places where there is no Christianity, where they don't
Mhm.
learn about God? What happens to them? Do they go to hell? What about dogs? Do dogs have a soul? Are they aware? Do they go to heaven or hell? Right? Because I always cared about animals, so that was kind of more of an immature thought that I used to have. I asked about things related to if God is all powerful and all knowing and he has a plan for us, and why does he allow us to suffer? There's a lot of questions like that I built up over the course of my life that would be answered with other things that I accepted that I realized later were still contradictory. It wasn't one major event, and if it was, it would actually be something that was somewhat trivial.
Mhm.
uh, that I was having an incident where I really needed to get home. I had an emergency. I had to get home, and there was a people outside preaching, and they stopped me to talk to me and asked me if I wanted to talk about God, and I was like, no, I really need to get home. I have an emergency. And they were like, oh well, like come up, and we'll pray for your emergency. And I'm like, is it gonna prevent my emergency from happening? Like, I really need to get home like right now. Um, because I had an issue with my family, and it's like, oh, God will take care of it if you just come up and pray. And I'm like, I really need to get home. And they were like, oh, you don't know God, you don't believe in God. Um, I, and I'm like, okay, this is bullshit. And I've seen that very often, the very condescending nature of Christians and Christianity, whatever sect they fall under, whether it's Protestant or uh, whatever it may be. Um, and that particular event in and of itself didn't really necessarily push me away from religion, but it kind of really like opened up my eyes to how people either praise or blame, well, not blame God, but they assign praise to God in any instance, whether it's negative or positive. Something good happens to you, oh, it's the will of God. Something bad happens to you, oh well, it's the will of God. And I got so tired of this and hearing it all the time, even from my own family or within the church, that I started looking into things more. And it wasn't like that. That wasn't the exact moment I said, "Well, I'm no longer Christian," because I still like held on to my faith for many years after that. Um, but it was starting to wane. I used to pray to God every single night. Um, and eventually I found that whatever was going to happen, whether or not it was through the will of God or I decided to see the signs or open up my eyes and allow him to speak to me. I think that it's all at the end of the day confirmation bias. You're going to see signs where you look for them, and this is something that I started looking into and I figured out. So I moved away from Christianity and I started looking at life from less through the lens of religion. So it wasn't one major thing in general. It was a lot of things over the course of most of my 2/3 of my life.
So you can't say for sure you've ever had a one-on-one experience with a God.
I don't think anybody has.
But we're not talking about anybody else. I'm just asking for you specifically. You have not experienced any one-on-one experience with God.
Um, what would you describe as a one-on-one
I no,
experience with God?
that would be your description of what you think. And that's why I'm asking if from your definition of what God was at the time,
Mhm.
do you remember anything of a one-on-one experience with him?
any single event that I could recall was a one-on-one experience with God. I don't know how anybody would classify that. That's the thing. That would simply just be based on my opinion of somebody's
Yeah,
own
that's why I'm
confirmation
asking you, not
bias.
anybody else.
Right?
Yeah,
Like, did
exactly.
God speak to me? Did He show me a
Hmm.
particular sign? Did I ask for something to happen and it did? How would I would like to know how you would describe a one-on-one instance with God, because I think that anybody can find evidence for themselves if they look hard enough that they did. And I don't want to make that claim because I would say that no, I never had a one-on-one experience with God.
Okay.
But when I was a Christian, did I see signs of God? Absolutely, yes.
So then that's the answer to my question. Um, in your opinion, you cannot say definitively that you have or have not.
I can say definitively that
That you
I
have
have
not.
not.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
good. And that's that. Okay, that answers the question. When we start branching out into, well, I don't think anybody has. It's not. I can literally tell you that I have, and even if I told you that, you'd say, well, that may not have been, but it's still my personal experience with it. So that's
Right.
why I said you can't say no one else has because,
I
well,
say that I don't think
not
nobody else
everybody.
has because I don't believe that God exists. I think it's all confirmation bias.
Right.
So I'm not attacking anybody or speaking for anybody. I'm simply saying that because I don't, like, you can't expect me to come in here and say that I don't believe God exists and then to say that I think that you've had an experience with God. That would be me being intellectually dishonest.
Well, unless you said they had an experience with their idea of God.
No, with God, not their idea of God.
Well, but if there is no God, then it has to be their idea
No,
because
I would
he's
make
not
I
real,
would I
right?
would make the claim that nobody has had an experience with God because I do not believe God exists.
Right. So if they have had an experience, it would be their idea of God, not real God.
Yes, what they believe to be
That's right.
what they
That's what
believe to
I'm
be
saying.
God.
So they had
Okay,
an
yeah, yeah.
interaction with their
I agree.
idea of God.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Their subjective idea of what God
Right.
is.
Okay.
Yes.
And that so I get that.
So
Um,
objectively subjective to them.
yeah. Either way. Right.
Right.
Now we had a discussion on TikTok about the validity of science and the creation of man, or the advent of man, um, and the branching out of the human race versus the animal race, and the introduction of morality into the structure of mankind. Um, the question I didn't get to ask at the time was, and I think, well, I kind of hit on it a little bit, but I didn't get time for you to expound on it, was um, if we are all from the same location in terms of the organism that started all of this, um, would that make eventually everyone incestuous?
Um, I guess it would, how closely somebody's DNA would be to define incest. I think we define incest as direct relatives. We know that we have first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth relatives, right? If somebody's like 1,000, 1,000th removed from me, no, I wouldn't count it as incest. But first or second removed from me, yes, absolutely.
Does that depend on the degeneration of the DNA structure in terms of over time, how pure the DNA is from the time of creation or the time of the advent of man to now? Would that make a difference?
How like diluted the DNA is?
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
And that would depend on how far or how close you can have relationships with somebody versus not.
Well, incest is necessarily a societal immoral thing, right? We think that it's immoral to sleep with our family members, but thousands of years ago, when there was a lot less of us, and people didn't have much of a choice but to do so, they did.
Okay, good.
So,
I just want to verify that that particular point would be off the table when it comes to the morality based on a God base or a man base, because that would be dependent on the population and the necessity at the time. Um,
right. I mean, if
but
we all got reduced to like the last three people on Earth, and they happen to be family members, like, would it be immoral for them to try to continue the human species by reproducing? Probably. I don't think anybody would get mad at them for that.
There'll be only three. They can only be the ones that get mad, so no one would care.
Yeah.
Wouldn't really matter at that point. So I want to tackle this whole thing from this, and I only have two more questions, and you can ask me if you have any. Um, well, I don't only have two more, but for now, I only have two more. Um, the idea that morality is based on mankind's ability to decide it, as opposed to a God creating man and giving them the sense of morality. Where in those two do you find the most ground for saying that man has created his own morality, because I'm trying to decide how is it that if man created his own morality, that it even harnessed itself to this one particular idea that right and wrong was the two things that came out of it.
Right. So, just to be clear, or do you believe that without the existence of a God in which we ground the existence of morality,
Mhm.
because God gives us that grounding for morality, that there is no morality without
Right,
God,
right.
or okay. My point to that is that I believe that the existence of morality is something that is natural, inherent with all beings, and can change based on the times that society lives in. Right? Obviously, the morality that we have today is much different than the morality that we had in the past at some points. Would I say that morality is overall objective? In a sense, yes. Do I believe that individuals have the objective, subjective belief of their own morality? Absolutely. Um, but I think that when you think of morality as a whole, right, not within a vacuum, but where do we ground morality, right? I think that we ground morality in our natural development as Homo sapien, as persons, and combined with our ability to be conscious, with our ability to be self aware, and with our emotions that humans have, which is something that other beings do have, but not combined with our level of self awareness. Um, that we get morality from primarily one word, and that is reciprocity. For anybody who may not know what reciprocity is, I know not everybody knows, but it essentially means that you wouldn't want stuff done to you, or you wouldn't want to do to others as you wouldn't want them to do to you, right? Or you would want to care for others as you would want them to care for you, right? The golden rule is what we call this, the golden rule of reciprocity. I believe that we inherently understand that we do not want to be harmed, that we don't want harm to come to us, that we want to have fulfillment and live our best lives. And as a result of that, we understand things like reciprocity, empathy, and sympathy for the suffering of others, or the people within society who lack this, or the knowledge of it, or to be aware of it, or not taught it. Absolutely. But I believe that inherently we all have this feeling. We know when we do something wrong to somebody that it's wrong, even if we try to justify it with other things, such as you just think of like bullies, right? They justify their wrong behavior with their idea that might is right, and not. Uh, but I believe that deep down they do understand reciprocity. A lot of people who get older tend to understand this as well. But it's something that we learn. But I think it's something that I mean, you can learn to be better at it. But I think it's something that we all inherently have. So as a species, as we're evolving and developing and producing or reproducing, we understood that we couldn't just go around killing everybody because, well, there would be none of us left if we did, or stealing or uh, assaulting and whatnot. So I think that's where our morality comes from, not from the existence of a God, or that it's grounded in the existence of God in particular.
So, how do you accommodate or account for the idea of survival of the fittest, or do you even believe in that concept?
Um, I think that we do survival of the fittest every single day, right?
Hmm.
Humans are the fittest, I guess you can call that. We're the smartest. We're at the top of the food chain. We kill animals all the time for our own dietary needs. We hunt, right? Even when it's not even necessary. There are some people out there who still hunt for their own food. People in the Midwest, in particular, or in more rural areas, may hunt for food. As opposed to like going out and shopping or whatever. But outside from that, people just do hunt for sport. So I mean, we we are literally living the survival of the fittest every single day, just by the based on the merit of who we are as human beings. So yes, I do believe that survival of the fittest is a thing, and that all of us are essentially participating in this survival of the fittest at all times. So
So I find it interesting that you went straight from to survival of the fittest as a relationship to man and animal, but not to man and man. Why was that? Why was that the link that you made for survival of the fittest? Are we not also in a battle with each other for survival of the fittest?
So when we talk about survival of the fittest, often we think about the interconnection of survivability from one animal species to another, right? When we talk about survival of the fittest, we could talk about this in the case of like lions, for example, right? Lions are of the same species, and often you will see that a male lion will kill other male cubs in order for them to uh, kind of remain in the position of power that the lion is, as being the head of the pride, so that no other younger lion grows up to be able to take the current lion's place as head of the pride. That is survival of the fittest, right? Obviously, the cub can't defeat a lion in a fight, so the lion is going to kill the cub. That's an example of like interspecies survival of the fittest. When we see this in the case of other animals, such as it doesn't matter if it's a bird and a caterpillar, right, or a hawk and a rat, or a cheetah and a gazelle, whoever's fastest is going to be the one who survives. In the case of humans, I don't think that we walk around with this survival of the fittest mentality at all times, at least not on a very primitive level where we feel like, oh, if I'm stronger than you, then I can kill you. But there are people who do this. You see this in things like bullying, right? Bullying is very prevalent as an instinctual, inherent example of survival of the fittest. So that might makes right. Um, you see this in economy, right? Whoever has the most money or the most control has the most power over people who don't, right? We just have survival. We still have survival of the fittest, but it's more so in ways that are societal, right? As opposed to us just walking around and killing each other. Now, are the people who kill, obviously, right? But I don't think they're doing it out of like some innate, like I just want to be stronger than the next person. Although I don't want to get into the psychological aspect of why people do negative things or psychopaths and how they kind of get a rush out of the amount of power and control that they have over people. But when we look at this purely from a societal standpoint, human versus human, yes, again, we do this every day. And we have lots of people, particularly in this particular case, conservatives, who make these arguments all the time. Like, oh, if you're poor, then that's your fault, right? You are not the fittest in this case economically, right? You are just not doing what you're supposed to be able to survive, regardless of whether or not what your economic status you were born into poverty. You didn't work hard enough, so you deserve to starve, or you don't deserve to have health care. And I often see this, Marlon, from your side, this idea of survival of the fittest, not from my side, who believes that we should all have equity, things like universal health care and universal or free education, right? At least the collegiate level. I often see from the side of conservatives or paleo conservatives that this idea of survival of the fittest is very prevalent socially and economically. So yes.
Um, I don't know about the deserve to die part, but I have been told that I deserve to die if I don't get vaccinated, and that's from your side. So let's refrain from the deserve to thing, deserve, because that's not for at least for me. I have never told anybody you deserve to get what you get if you don't do something.
I said from your side in particular.
Yep, right. And
Right.
I'm saying from your side, I've been told I deserve to die or not deserve any health care because I've not been vaccinated. So
Well,
there
as we
is
say, let's go
it's on
Darwin, right?
it's on both sides, right?
Right.
It has to be
Right.
both sides, not
Right.
just one.
Right.
Um, so the only thing I've actually said that you deserve what you get is if you indulge in a certain type of lifestyle where the interactive means will lead to a very horrific end. Um, that could be anything from drug use to gang affiliation.
Sure.
The same thing that goes for war. If you're a soldier, death happens. Um, so, but the idea of deserving is a subjective thing. Um, so that was the end of my first phase of questions. If you have anything based on what we were discussing there, let me know, and then I can answer those.
Right. So I am curious as to where you will be making your stance from, because I've explained very often my position of where I
Hmm.
believe morality comes from, where I believe it stems from, and in our last conversation, mostly what I got was questions from you and kind of me just defending that point against your questions.
Hmm.
Do you have a grounding or a maxim to stand on in regards to where you believe morality comes from and how you can substantiate that claim with the existence of God?
Yes. Um, so when it comes to morality, the basis of it that I pick, it has to be something that cannot just because I feel like it should change. Man's viewpoint of morality fluctuates just based on a whim, sometimes based on a feeling. And I don't think I can ground myself on anything that isn't itself grounded. If your morality changes every time your feeling changes, it is not a grounded thing. It is you carrying it wherever you feel like going, which makes it very undependable. It's no different than trying to anchor your boat to something that always moves. Your boat ain't gonna ever be the same place you left it the last time, and then nothing is safe. When I base my viewpoint of morality coming from the idea of God, who does not change, it is external, outside of me. I cannot switch that morality up. I cannot make it change to what I feel. It is what it is. I have a more solid base to go from, as opposed to someone who has a morality base that is always fluctuating. When God says don't murder, it's set in stone. Whether or not the law tells me or the government tells me don't kill, they can always switch it up and say, well, you can kill in this instance and you can kill in that instance and blah, blah, blah. But when it's God saying don't kill, it's don't kill. When God says something set in stone, love thy neighbor as thyself, it's set in stone. It's not based on my morality, and it's built into me not because I put it there, but because he put it there. The same way no one can explain how morality even came about other than, oh, it developed. I don't see any difference between telling me it developed as opposed to God putting it there. So unless you can actually show me the point at which man developed morality, I have to believe that it just developed, or you had it all along. And if you had it all along, how? And if it just developed, how? I based mine on the creator of who I am, which is God. The same way I see a phone getting built by somebody, there are certain traits innate to the phone that did not just get there. They were built into the phone, and since the phone does what it's supposed to do because it was built to do that. The same way man was built to do something, built to express the exact nature of God in his morality, you see it embodied.
Okay. So the grounding of morality comes from, you see God as like an anchor, right? And without that, we would all just be boats in the water.
No. God isn't the anchor. God is what the anchor is holding on to.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So God is the anchor of what it's holding on to, and that grounds us in a morality. Otherwise, we would all just be boats in the water floating off and whatever, because that can fluctuate, right? It can change with the tide, as I would imagine the analogy would go into. So this inherent grounding of God and his moral principles, I find that God in and of itself is very inconsistent in the Bible.
Okay.
At times he condones or even participates in the slaughtering of thousands of people, but then tells others that they should not kill. He is an active participant and encourages the violation of women and children and slaves, but then he says that those things are wrong. He then has a bunch of other rules that to me don't make any sense. Things like not eating shellfish, for example. I've heard arguments that from Christians in particular that we should reject the Old Testament because Jesus came and essentially said those teachings were wrong. But if those teachings were from God and he is the Son of God, then isn't God just contradicting himself? Where do we ground the morality on which God exists if even God himself is not morally consistent?
Well, what you're equating to morality is theology, and you can't mix the two. Okay.
What do you mean?
What you're mixing theology with morality.
No, these are things that happen in the Bible.
Yes, but what you're mixing is theology with morality.
Okay, so what's your argument against that?
I'll get to that.
Sure.
So when God says to do something, because he's the arbiter of all of it, it's done. When he doesn't, it's not done. He has set rules, no different than anybody. If I tell you, like, I'm your parent, and you're 3 years old, and I tell you you cannot do something, but then you see me doing something that I told you not to do, like, say, touch the stove. But then I tell you, don't touch the stove. That's not a contradiction in morality, nor is it me trying to be different than you. I am doing something that I can do that you cannot do. If at age 16, it is still my stove, I tell you you can touch the stove at a certain time, you decide to go touch the stove at a different time, I can then punish you for doing something outside of my rules. Because they're my rules, not the kids' rules. It is no different than with God. But you have to believe on the conscience that God is who he is for any of that to make sense to you. If, however, that doesn't make sense, it's because of the belief system you have of who God is. If God really is the be all and end all, my place is not to question his rules, it's to abide by them. It is no different than a kid. What you get when a kid rebels is what you call the questioning of most rules. Yes, there are some things that are abusive in parental rules. That has never been the case in God's rules. You cannot name me one abusive rule that God has put down. I'm telling you right now, you can't place one abusive rule anywhere in God's word, not one. And if you can, I would press you to show me.
Uh, Numbers 21, I believe, or Numbers 20, 21. The sterilization of women, if they're not faithful to their husband, I would say is an abusive rule.
Did God put that rule in place?
Absolutely, it's in Numbers.
But
Numbers,
but
Deuteronomy, and Leviticus
no.
are.
The question is, did God put that rule in
So,
place?
so when we talk about the rules that God has put in
Hmm.
place, right? These were the people who essentially spoke or got their rules from God, right? The Israelites in the books of Moses. What are the rules of Leviticus and Deuteronomy, first and second law, as well as the rules and Numbers come from? Are those the rule of God, or are those the rule of man,
Well,
or are they the rules of God? I'm not talking about the Ten Commandments in particular,
hmm.
but a lot of the rules that are listed within. If you've read the entire Bible, I assume.
Yes, yes.
Right. The rules that are listed in because Deuteronomy and Leviticus is just full of like laws. Do we denounce the laws, or do we count them as the laws of God because they're in the Bible and the Bible is the truth of God, or do we say that they're the laws of man and not that they were laws through which the Israelites were given by God?
You will find quite a few places in the Bible, throughout Old and New, where man has taken upon himself to implement things that were not of God, and they eventually paid the cost for that. Um, Take, for instance, of people going out to um, act on something that God never said to act on, and the very next thing, like I'll give you Saul, King Saul, as for an example. God was going to put him in place a king. They didn't want God to assign a king; they wanted their own king. In that case, God said, "Fine, you know what? Do what you want. If you want a king, you do what you want and pay the consequences for it." And He let them have their king. That king was a very bad king. He didn't do what he was supposed to do. God eventually rectified things. But the thing is, God will let you, this whole free will idea, he will let you do a bunch of crazy stuff in lieu of you obeying, because you have that choice to disobey.
Right.
However, the consequence of your disobedience is not absolved. You still get to pay the consequence. But in that case, you've chosen the consequence because he doesn't not lay down the consequence. So for you to equate that, oh, he allowed the mutilation of women, which he never commanded, for him to allow that does not mean that the consequence for doing something didn't come back on these people, because it did. Israel went through all kinds of hell for their rebellion against God. Israel had anything but an easy time in the Bible because of how much they rebelled against God. They have constantly been given choices after choices to obey, to obey, to obey. And at every turn, one of the most rebellious people in the Bible has been the Israelites. If you look at Abraham, he did his fair share of rebellion. Jacob did his fair share of rebellion. David did his fair share of rebellion. Every last one of them.
Especially David.
But the one thing that didn't change was the fact that they rebelled against something that they were given specific rules to do. When they weren't given specific rules, they made up their own, which is like today's time. So I cannot give you that God commanded these things, which he did not, and equate when man picks something to do that God was okay with it. Him allowing something to happen versus him being okay with it are completely different things. My 16-year-old has done a lot of dumb stuff. Completely. A lot of dumb stuff. I allow him to do it because at some point, life has to teach him a lesson. My rules are still set in stone. Don't do this in my house. Don't do this in my house. Don't do this. Don't do this because you represent me. His free will cause him to disobey my rules. I can either put my punishment on him, or the consequence of his actions outside of my will pay the consequences for himself. I don't have to do a whole lot. It is no different than with God. So seeing something happen with God's people and saying, oh, yeah, See, God allowed that. God didn't allow, well, God okayed that. He didn't okay it, he allowed it. There's a massive difference between allowing something and being okay with it. And throughout history, throughout the Bible, there have been a lot of things allowed that were not sanctioned or commanded by God.
So, um, let's see here. So, what was the word you used that God has never put forth a law that was what?
What do you mean?
You said that there's never been evidence that God put forth a law that was used like a derogatory term for what God has never done. Bad or something that was and then right after I brought up the law about sterilizing women who cheat on their husbands or who are not faithful to their husbands. What was the exact word you
Well, if
used?
what's the concept behind it though?
Well, the
What do you
concept
mean?
behind that is that then said that those were the laws of man.
Hmm.
Um, right. And I'm looking at numbers here, numbers 20, in which I believe this law fall over. Right. These are, and it says, and the Lord spoke unto Moses.
Hmm.
Right. So these are the Lord's words, and
Okay,
every
go ahead. Go
law.
ahead and read it. Read
Yeah,
it though. Read
absolutely.
it.
So I'm just looking at a couple of them here. For example,
Hmm.
like if he commits adultery, you'll be put to death
Hmm.
for committing adultery.
Hmm.
If you curse your father or mother, you shall be put to death.
Hmm.
Um, some of these, let's see, if a man lies with his daughter, both should be put to death. I'm not really totally, I don't know if somebody should die for that, but you definitely shouldn't be doing that. Again, I'm not saying that all of these are bad, but for example, cursing your mother or father being put to death, committing adultery being put to death. Um, if a man, a woman having her sickness, so she has a period,
She gets put
and
out
shall
and out
uncover.
of
Yeah,
town. Hmm.
exactly. Right. Well, kicked out. Right of the yeah
For a
of
time, yes.
right. Um, she has uncovered her fountain of blood, and both of them shall be cut off from their people. It doesn't say
Hmm.
for a time; it just says cut off from the people.
Hmm.
Um, can't look at your mother naked. I believe there was a case where this happened, and like a young boy was like killed by God himself, or made blind. I don't remember. It's been a while since I read the story. I'm pretty sure he was struck down and killed immediately by God for accidentally looking at his mother's naked body.
Well, if you don't
Um,
know for sure, don't quote
yeah.
it. Just
Um,
some advice. If you don't know for sure that's what happened, then don't say that's what happened because,
Pretty sure that
okay.
is what happened though. I remember the story being like a thing in my mother
So
used to be very adamant about like
pretty
knocking on
sure.
her door because
Okay.
things might happen and
Yeah.
God might kill me if I did so.
Hmm.
Um,
I can see why you
let's see.
stopped following Christianity then.
Well, she didn't say that God would kill me. She just told me the consequence of the story. And I would ask this again. This when my mother wasn't like a devout like my mother's not the one who turned me away from Christianity whatsoever. My mother was not like one of those parents. But she did tell me the story and the consequence of what happened. And again,
Hmm.
this would lead me to questions like, well, how come God doesn't do that anymore? If the sin is still equal today, then why doesn't God still kill somebody for viewing their mother's nakedness? Right. Which of course I would get no actual answer
No,
to.
you get
Um,
a sure answer. Don't assume that you won't get an
um,
answer. If you're going to ask the question, ask the question. Trust me, I'm ready to give you a complete and full 100% answer.
okay.
There is an answer to all of that, all
Okay.
of it.
We'll get into that. Let me
Yeah.
just note of that here. Um, blah, you shall have dirt and clean, beast and unclean. Yeah, great. But yes, some of these are actually all the word of God, right? So it's not just his divine 10 commandments that are the word of God. There are lots of it. I'm pretty sure I could find more. Again, I haven't read the Bible in a
Hmm.
while. I told you it's been about 10 years, but I've read the entire Bible. It's been a while since I did though, so I may not remember everything off the top of my head. But some of those laws, right? If you commit adultery, you think people should be put to death. You don't think that that's a very negative law for God to put forth? Do you think that these laws should be followed today? Or if they're not being followed today, why not?
They're not asked to be followed today
Because
because of Jesus.
because of Jesus.
Yeah.
Yes, the great arbiter of um, the New Testament against the Old Testament. So,
No, 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 no. Okay, see, now that's what we're not going to do. If
what?
you don't believe it anymore, that's one
Mhm.
thing. But to push aside it because someone else does, I haven't done that to science, and I'm not going to do that to you.
No, I'm
My,
saying that in this
he
case,
is
the
not.
answer
He
that I
no, he
get
is not.
often.
He is not. He is not in this case. Again, you have to look at things the way God made things, not the way man wants to see things. The
So,
Old Testament and prior to Jesus, everything was law. Everything had a natural consequence straight off the top for a breaking of the law because that was the only way to ensure the survival of the rule of law with God. When Jesus came, Because of the fall of man, he was the second Adam. And again, all of this, you have to go back to believing certain things. And if you don't, none of it's going to really make sense to you. When Adam sinned, all fell under that rule.
Right.
Plain and simple. So you had laws now implemented to create a balance between right and wrong. Jesus came, and there was such a thing now as universal forgiveness. The law was put to death, and Jesus was now the only real arbiter between God and man of right and wrong and passage from sin to life. You believe in Jesus and you follow your way to God. You have now passed from a law based to a forgiveness based, and God looking at you through the eyes of Jesus, not at you, but at his son. Hence why the covering of the blood. Bam, bam, bam. But if none of those things are believed, you won't ever, 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 ever make it make sense. The Old Testament was all rule-based, law-based. There was nothing you can do outside of sacrifice to atone for everything. And the reason he put sacrifices in the way was to have a precursor for what Jesus was going to be. Jesus was the be-all and end-all of the sacrifice because he was a perfect man living a perfect life on earth as man in flesh. Once that was done, because the only atonement for the sin that happened with Adam was for a perfect to be put to death on behalf of, the same way you do with a ram, a goat, or a bull. Once Jesus took the place as the permanent sacrifice, we now have a passage from where we were into God, and now we have the forgiveness of sins. So when you tell me, oh, this man has committed a sin, it is no longer man to man, it is man dealing with Jesus, dealing with God. You have now an avenue for that forgiveness. He has put all sin to death, all of it. Anything you can possibly do has now been brought to the cross, put to death in the ground, no longer part of who you are once you go through the avenues of Jesus, which is why he is indeed the bridge between the Old and the New Testament. He is the fulfillment of what we call law. The law was the Old Testament. Are those stories irrelevant? Absolutely not, because they show what life was like with law. The New Testament shows exactly what life is like under grace and Jesus. It is not different. They're not separated. You can't forget one and not accept the other, or only accept one and not the other. They're both happened together and simultaneously, because at the time of Jesus' death, he created that bridge from law to life. But in order to understand that, you have to believe the prior of who God was. He is still the same. He has not changed. The only reason he is not continuing the law-based stuff is because of Jesus. That was his decision to do. The only way that he could atone for the mistakes we made was that. There was no other avenue to do that. None.
So, a couple things about that. Let's kind of walk through this. So, the reason why we don't have sacrifice and stuff anymore as atonement for our sin, is because Jesus was the ultimate sacrifice, right? So are we still born sinners after Jesus' sacrifice, or
yes, because you have to accept him,
right? So we're born sinners until we accept Jesus, right? And then after that, if we make mistakes, what do we do to atone for that? We don't have to, because Jesus did it for us, correct?
What do you mean mistakes?
If I sin,
well, that's a big difference between mistake and a sin.
Well,
you're asking a very big difference of words here. I mean, a mistake is, oh, I knocked the glass off the table. A sin is, oh, I knocked a man off a cliff. I mean, it's quite a difference in words. So I want to make sure when you say mistake, what do you mean?
So if I deliberately sin, now what do I do? I've accepted Jesus into my life. I deliberately sin. Is there anything that God asks of me at this point?
Confessing it to him.
Confession. So now it's confession of your sin.
To who?
What do you mean? I'm asking you.
Confession. Yeah, to who? That's the biggest thing. It's not to any man. It's to God.
Confess to God. So in the privacy of your home, to a pastor.
Just confess. No, not to confess. I said to God, not to a pastor. To God. Yeah.
So confess your sin to God. And do you think that all sin is equal?
It's sin is sin. No, but you might equal. They don't have all equal outcomes, and they don't have equal consequence in the real world. But sin before God is sin before God.
Right. So to God, lying and murder is the same.
Well, yeah, because it's both of it's transgression against the holy God. I don't know what you mean. I know you're applying a human aspect to, but you're applying a human question.
But weren't we made in God's image? Weren't we made in God's image?
Well, of course we were made in God's image, and we defiled that image by doing what we did. So again, what do you mean?
So we were made in God's image, but now we no longer represent how we would have existed as God. I don't understand. If Adam and Eve were made in God's image, then how were they able to be deceived? Isn't
It was
God
still
like
it was still free will,
indeceivable?
wasn't it?
So God gave them free will. So then they
They
were able
always
to be
had it,
deceived.
yes.
Okay. So
Always. He gave them exact rules what to do. Don't touch that tree.
right.
And they touched the tree.
But if God is infallible and he's
God is
perfect,
infallible, man isn't.
right? But so how were we made in his image?
What do you mean how you're made in his image?
God is supposed to be perfect. If God made us in his image, why wouldn't he just make us like him, perfect?
What exactly do you think in his image meant?
Mm, I think that this is just a dog whistle to say that we're made in God's image, that we feel love, kind of like this grounding for morality, right? We feel love because God is loving. We feel respect for others because God, I don't know, has respect. Or we feel anger because God has righteous anger. Or the emotions that we have is grounded in the Holy Spirit, right? And what we understand is like this feeling of God, that in His image we're made in that way, so that we have the qualities of what God has, that he's righteous, right? That he's loving, that he's caring, that he's kind, and we are made in his image in that way, which again, I think is just a dog whistle to kind of give God a grounding in humanity and not give humanity a grounding in God.
So, okay, so you didn't answer the question of what does it mean to be in his image. Do you have kids?
Yes, I have one.
Is he in your image?
She very much looks like me, yes.
Does she behave exactly like you?
Not at all.
Does she screw up in a different way than you?
Yes.
But she's in your image?
But she looks like me physically.
But
That's
she's
not
in
the
your
same
image
thing.
because she has your traits, right?
So God looks like us?
No, hold on. She has your traits, right?
Yes.
Okay. When he says in his image, we are taking it as saying, oh, we should be exactly like God. We are not exactly like God. We have been made to want to foster a relationship. And that fostering of the relationship is with God. What man eventually did was try to find a way to not foster that relationship. When I give you, if I have a kid, take for instance, my kid comes to me and people say, man, that kid looks just like you. I said, yeah, but he doesn't act anything like me. And they're like, well, how do you know it's your kid? Well, outside of him looking like me, I can have a DNA test done and I can tell you that one way. That's a man way of doing it. Or I can tell you that when he sits down, he crosses his legs in a certain pattern that only I did when I was his age. Okay, that's one way to tell that he's mine and he's kind of like in your image. What else? He can decipher between listening and not listening. That's also a trait. Yeah, okay. But everyone else does that. Okay. What else does he do that you can tell that he's made in your image? He's in my care. What does that mean? He's within my image. But that doesn't make any sense, Marlon. What are you talking about? I am in God's image. I have been made. He breathed life into me. The instant he put life into me, I am now part of who he is. His image is into me. You familiar with computers? You know what an ISO is?
Yes, I know what an ISO
Okay,
is.
perfect. That's exactly what it is. We're a burnt image. His image is burnt into us. You ever wonder why people can't be satisfied, can't be happy with certain things? The problem is that we have denied that image that he has put in us. When Adam and Eve were in the garden, he could hear God talk. He could hear God's voice move in the garden. He was given a set of rules. He was given the free will. He said, don't touch that tree. If you touch it, you will surely die. The devil came. The devil said, hey, he didn't really say that. Well, he did. No, he didn't really say you will surely. Did he really say you'll die? Try it and see. Free will. I'll try it. God shows up. Why'd you touch the fruit? When parents know when kids do something wrong because the kids are acting a little bit different. This is exactly what happened in the garden. Why
I know
are you
what happened
hiding?
to Adam. Adam hid. He hid from God.
Right? And why did he hide, though?
Because he knew he did something wrong.
Okay. So innately, the image that God put in him was acting against the failure that he had. And now, remember, he didn't know right and wrong before, right? It activated right away. The wrong he did activated the image of right that God had in him. It went completely against it, and the instant it hit, he hid. Because he couldn't stand before a fully righteous God knowing what he had done. And now that was the first, and the second thing he did was lie after he got caught. He wouldn't accept responsibility for the fact that he took the fruit too. No. You see, what happened was she gave it to me, and otherwise, I wouldn't have touched it. But because it was your fault that you had it her to me anyway. Because she wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for you, God. So don't blame me for eating the fruit. It was this woman. Then she turned around. No, well, you see, what happened was that guy that gave it to me. If he didn't give it to me, then I wouldn't. And that's been man's case ever since. Pass the blame, pass the blame, pass the blame. At that point, when he said, "You will surely die," most people say, well, he didn't kill him. No, he did. He implemented death into the world. Death was not a consequence of sin. Man's life began to deteriorate from then on. Day after day after day after day, man's life became shorter and shorter and shorter. Plain and simple. So the image that he's burned into us will automatically go against what we call, I would say his image would be what you would call morality.
Right. So I find that these concepts are inherently contradictive unless I'm missing something here. Mm-hmm. So Adam and Eve in the garden did not know the concept of right and wrong, correct? Mm-hmm. They only understood this concept after they partook in eating the forbidden fruit, right? Mm-hmm. So if God made man, which was his idea of what man was supposed to be, the perfect man, in his image was Adam. Mm-hmm. And then Adam got lonely. He needed a companion. He made Eve.
No, he didn't get lonely. God said it wasn't good for man to be alone.
Right. Yes.
Man didn't even know that.
Exactly. Yes. We didn't know loneliness. We didn't know negativity.
Right.
We didn't really even know positivity. Right. We just knew existence.
We knew God.
Right. We knew.
Right. Probably knocked his phone over.
The idea of like, did morality always exist in the world? And if so, to who? If Adam and Eve were the only two people on the planet at the time, mm-hmm. In the Garden of Eden, if they were the first two, along with the animals, I would assume that the animals in and of themselves also did not have any grounding in what morality was.
Yeah, because they all ate plants. Yeah.
Right. So do you mean to tell me that God always knew what morality was?
Yes.
But he only instilled this knowledge upon Adam and Eve after they ate the forbidden fruit? And if that's true, then how were they created in his image if he denied them the knowledge of morality?
No, he didn't deny them the knowledge of morality. Like I said, the image is morality.
He explicitly made them without understanding morality.
The image, his image is morality.
God's image is morality.
Yes.
But Adam and Eve, who were made
in his image,
were not
listen carefully. Yes, because I'll tell you why. You were told not to do something. Whether you assigned it as good or evil, the Creator did assign it as good or evil. You were given a choice. The free will was there. I say, don't touch that tree. You have now been given the choice of touching the tree or not touching the tree. The dichotomy shows up when the serpent showed up and gave them the option of not listening and touching the tree. The innate sense that they have of morality, which was innate to them, they went against, which is why the guilt set in after they did what they did. They went directly against the rule that God put down. Now remember, Adam had a relationship with God long before this event took place. He was with God. He named the animals. He had it all to himself. He got his wife created for him from himself. All of this happened while in good standing relationship with God. One event takes place where he has to decide whether he's following God, the man who created him, who he knew created him, or take the fruit. The first moral dilemma happened to mankind, and we failed miserably because we picked what we wanted.
Here's my thing, right? If Adam and Eve were made in God's image, mm-hmm. It seems like this free will thing is used as like a silver bullet for any argument against the contradictions or anything so that we can't blame God, right? Because they had free will. But again, if God made them in his image, Why did he give them the ability to mess up? Shouldn't he created Satan, right? Or I guess you would argue that Satan created himself because he didn't obey God. But I
Mm-hmm.
would say that God created Satan. He knew what Satan would do, right? Because God should know everything that's going to happen, everything that has happened, and everything that is happening. Even if God knew in the future what he was going to do,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't do anything to stop it, right? He gave just Satan the absolute ability to manipulate everybody. He knew that they would fail, or he had to at least guess that they would fail. I would
Mm-hmm.
assume that if God is a divine being, he can like deduce infinitely what's going to happen. So he created man so that he could then watch man fail, which he had to have known was going to happen, to then punish man for thousands of years, to then sacrifice himself
Mm-hmm.
to forgive us for the sin that he knew that was going to happen because
Mm-hmm.
he created us. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
So you would prefer to not have free will, then, is what you're saying?
That's not what I'm saying whatsoever. None
Well,
of what I
what
just said has to do
we,
with any of that.
we
What
are
I'm
talking
saying
of.
is
Bye,
that
Amy. Hold on. Bye, Amy. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. I never wanted you to fall on me anyway, so it's not really a loss to me. Have fun. See you later. Bye. All right.
all
Now
right.
back to you.
So yeah, so um again, God knew all this stuff was going to happen, but he let it happen. He let us suffer, right? This, even if he gave us free will.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that despite the fact that we have free will, because I found these statements also very contradictory, people often say that we have free will, which I believe we do, right? But not because of God. But that we have free will, but God has a plan for us. How can God have a plan for us? How can he steer our lives in a particular direction and allow things to happen to us or not allow things to happen to us? Um, if we have free will. Does he know what we're going to do? He can't affect what we're going to do, but he knows. Does he steer us in the right path? Does he put signs in our way that we ignore or look out for? What about kids who were born and die at the age of 5
Mm-hmm.
from cancer? What was their purpose? Why did God do that to them?
So why did
I know I
God
asked a lot
do
of
that to
questions,
them?
but
No, no, I have no
yes,
problem with the questions.
right.
So right away, when I attribute something good to God, it's a problem. When you attribute something bad to God, that's normal.
No, not at all.
But you said, why
I
did
believe
God let that happen? Or
right. So
how did you? No, no, you didn't say let that happen. Why did God do that to the kid when he said he gave him
let
cancer?
me let me reword that. Why did he allow that to happen to them? If like, what's the purpose of a child being born, right? Living until 5 years old, getting cancer, and then dying, right? Without ever having known God. Let's say the parents weren't Christians. Like, does that
Mm-hmm.
child now go to hell? And if God knew this was going to happen and created this person and knew that they would get cancer, why would He allow that to happen? And I would really appreciate an answer that God just knows and that He's right because He's God.
No, that's not what I was going to tell you
All right.
at all. And okay, so first of all, I'm not your typical what you would consider Christian.
Okay.
Okay, so the same way I'm not going to put you in an atheist box or a typical liberal box, which I did before and I don't anymore. I would appreciate not being put in the box that prior Christians have shown you that Christianity is. Okay,
Sure.
um, that would be much appreciated because I don't want to be stared like Amy did in the chat. You know, she's exactly like the mindset that you just presented, where, oh, I see you're just a hypocritical, judgmental. Well, that's what you think. Then move on. I don't really need to have your approval in my life. I have kids for that. Um, when we look at life in general, we are living in a fallen world. Ever since that mistake that Adam and Eve committed in the garden, we are now forced to live in a world of our own making, because it really is of our own making. Because of the sin of Adam and Eve, which is why people don't like Adam and Eve in the Christian world anymore, by the way, is because from that, everything in the world, both physical, metaphysical, took a turn for the worst. And it all, just like their bodies started deteriorating, everything on the earth started to deteriorate. To say that he allows something, it's not that he's allowing it in terms of he created that to happen. You made the mistake. Here's the consequence, and it shall go forth ever since. His plan then was to rectify all wrong, all of it. Now, if I have a judicial system, okay, and my son is now incarcerated, I have two options. I can bust into jail and pull him out, or he can serve his time, and at the end of his time, he is free. I don't set the time; the judge sets the time. So here I am. I commit a crime, or my son commits a crime. He gets into jail. He has 20 years to serve. Within that 20 years' time, He has time to contemplate life and decide whether or not when he gets out, he's going to be doing something right or wrong. But I can't pull him out before that time. I can appeal. I can appeal to the good graces of the judge, and the judge can say no, because the rule is 20 years. He gets to 20 years, and at 20 years, he gets out. When Adam and Eve did what they did, there was a rule put down. Law. Okay? You shall stay fallen. Now you're separated from me. You will continue to go, and this is the time frame I've allowed it to go for. He set that time, not me. I don't get to decide, why couldn't you come earlier? Why didn't you do something earlier? He set the time for things to go to fruition for his purposes. That one I cannot intervene on, and I cannot question. Because in my opinion, and the way I see it, he is the creator. He set that in place. Because now remember, we're not talking about the atheist view about this. We're talking about why the Christian believes what the Christian believes.
Right.
And the Christian has to believe it based on what God said he is. Okay, so we want to make sure we set that framework before I continue. At the end of our time, he sent Jesus, and said at just the right time, he sent his son. End of our punishment on terms of law. He switched off the law, and now we have under grace. Now it's just like a probation period. No different. You have to stay clean. You can't do that, otherwise you fall back under it. It's no different. It is literally no different. The time frame, the punishment, all of it is set because of Adam and Eve, not because God wanted to, oh, I see the future and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, he knew, but he also gave you the choice. Could we have been in a different situation if Adam, or even just Adam, didn't touch the apple or the fruit or whatever it was? I'm sure we would have been in a different position. But he could also have been like, no, because he didn't stop the wife from doing it. But I'm not God. I can't make this. I can go based on what I know happened. You took the fruit after I told you not to take the fruit. And here's the consequence for taking the fruit. I told you what would happen. I sent my son, though, to be the ultimate sacrifice for the same mistake you did. It wasn't even my mistake, but I'm gonna take the mistake on for you. So that is the answer that I give. I'm not saying that because, oh, Jesus is the end all. Oh, the silver bullet. It's not a silver bullet. It's the way he laid it out. I don't get to question the way he laid it out. The sin happened. The punishment happened. Boom. The consequence. And then the renewal of life that Jesus came to do. It's in the Christian lineup. Whether or not I believe I want that to be the case is inconsequential. I don't have to accept Jesus. No one has to accept Jesus. They don't have to. You don't even have to. And you haven't. And that's, you've cut that off as an option. That's done. So that, like I said before to you, the end of it all has to be what you decide to do with your life is yours. Is there an option for you to pick another option? Or always will be, until it's not. And at that point, everybody will know whether or not their choices were right and wrong. The thing I keep telling people, the worst I will be is dead. The worst you will be is eternally in torment. So I prefer to, even if I were to take a humanistic approach to this, the worst I want to be is with him, as opposed to just burning. So even if I just die and that's the end of it, then I didn't lose anything in life. I mean, what is it? What is a Christian losing in life that by not doing what they're, what exactly am I losing?
Depends on what fulfills you.
Right. So what am I losing as a Christian? If I looked at your life versus mine, what am I losing when I die?
You're talking about from your perspective? I mean,
from you. Okay, so if I live my Christian life and you live yours, okay, and there is no God.
I live my agnostic atheist life.
Whatever life you live, okay. Yeah, and we both die. Okay, what in life did I lose?
Again, that depends on what fulfills you. I don't know what fulfills you.
Right. So, but I didn't. And during life, okay, I live the way I want, or I live Christian life.
Okay.
Based on your end of life, how you see life ending, right? You just die. Is that how you see it? Okay.
That is correct.
And if I just die, then whatever I did in life didn't really matter, because I wouldn't be affected after death by what I did in life.
Well, we don't base life on death. That's the problem, right? I don't say that because I'm going to die one day, I should not live a fulfilling life. The purpose of life is to give life purpose, right?
Right.
It's not to give death purpose. Christians seek to give death purpose.
Oh, no, we're not
Uh,
giving death purpose. No, I think that's where the
well, you live
dichotomy.
this life for the next. You don't
I,
live this life for this
I
life.
live this life for God, and He takes care of the next. There's a big difference. Like I
Okay,
said,
so
the
you live
wording
this life for
matters.
God, but not for you. I
Yes,
live my
I
life
don't
for
live.
me.
I don't. What it is for me, because for me to live is Christ, and for me to die is gain. That is how we see it. Okay, you see it as not living life. I am fully living life. Like I am 100% living life. I can still go skiing and jump off the tallest mountain and all that stuff. And some people might see life as sleeping with every Tom, Dick, and Harry, all simultaneously on the same day for weeks on end,
Well, why,
and
why,
that's
why, why
fulfilling to
can't
them.
I? Why can't the atheist also go skiing and
I'm
stuff
saying
like
you can.
that?
I'm not saying you can't. I'm telling you, but
Right,
as a Christian, I am living life to the fullest.
right,
Right. So
right.
that the life itself doesn't affect me. We are talking about a different type of level of living here. Me
So,
living life to the fullest, me living life to the fullest is in your mind would be what?
doing things that make me happy, doing things that fulfill me, having positive relationships,
Hmm.
doing things that are fun and exciting, whatever they may be, and not restricting myself on particular things that God says that like I can't do. I guess like
Hmm.
having sex outside of marriage would be one particular example. Not like a necessity. I'm not like going out and having like a ton of sex, as a lot of people think atheists are just like outside fucking everybody they want to. Um,
Hmm.
but just not having restrictions like that on my life, not having to second guess whether or not I've sinned in the day, and constantly living in fear that I'm going to do something wrong in the eyes of God, and then having to confess to God and worrying whether or not if I pray will God answer my prayers. To me, that's a life that I've lived, and it's a life of fear.
Christians don't worry about that.
Yes, you do.
No,
Um,
you're telling
uh,
me what I worry about?
not you in particular, Marlon. But you cannot say that there are no Christians out
No,
there
we
who
don't
do not.
worry about it. No, it's not a worry for
You can't
us.
speak for everybody, Marlon,
No,
because I've met
listen,
plenty of Christians who do.
As a Christian, it's not a worry.
So what is it?
It is a lifestyle that we live. It's not okay. Let me put it like this. And just like you think there, okay, let me see if the best way to phrase this. There is a way to live the Christian life the way God intended, and there is a way to live the life of a Christian the way God did not intend. I can live because He did not give me a spirit of fear or timidity. That was His words to me, which means I should not be living in fear of anything at all. And that means anything. Because if He did give me the option of forgiveness, then I should not fear because I have forgiveness. But the mere fact that I have forgiveness means that He cares, and I should be weary of committing sins intentionally towards Him. My life isn't going to be lived in fear as a Christian. And if I find myself living in fear as a Christian, I have to start questioning my belief in God. I do, because either I'm really taking Him at His word or I am not. There is no middle ground of I'm kind of taking Him by His word, and I'm either you are or you're not. He said, don't fear. He said to live life without that aspect of fear, because in God there is no darkness, there's only light. And if there's only light, I know He knows my sin already. So why am I afraid of telling Him something He already knows? But He's not going to be like, I knew you knew that sin before you told me, and I'm going to hold it. No, He's waiting. It's like me having my kid steal something from the kitchen. The kid broke the law by stealing something out of the kitchen. I can see him taking the piece of candy out the kitchen. I'm watching him from the living room. I know full well this brother just took that piece of candy out the kitchen. And he gonna walk in the room and act like I didn't see nothing, one, or I don't know, or he could hide it from me, right? And I'm like, I'm watching him. I'm like, I'm gonna wait to see if he tells me he took the candy. I'm gonna wait. And he eats the candy. And then I later come back and say, did you take the candy? No, 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 I didn't take the candy. No. I go and show him, and I know he took the candy. What's the punishment for stealing that candy? I get a spanking. Oh, did you take the candy? Yeah. I'm not going to give you the spanking, but don't do it again next time. That's the Jesus aspect of it.
Okay. It seems like you have a very good grasp on how a lot of Christians should live their life. What would you say to the ones who don't have this grasp of Christianity that you do?
I
Who
don't know what
do
I can. I don't
live
know
in
what I
fear,
can
or
tell
right, who are
anybody
not as knowledgeable in Christianity as
to
you would say you
get
are.
knowledgeable. That's our rule. Our idea. If I love somebody, shouldn't I want to know something about them?
Yes,
Shouldn't I, if I have a wife, shouldn't I know her favorite color, know what
absolutely.
flower she likes, knows
Mhm.
what time she look. If you like breakfast, I'll make. If you don't like breakfast, I'm not making you. If I want to know my wife, I'm going to take the time to know my wife. Like I will literally take time out of my day to know who she is. I will call her all the time, or if it's not, I cuddle all the something. I will act accordingly. But when you're in a religion with God, it's like having a king on his throne and he has a concubine. It ain't his wife, it ain't his queen. She's there. I'll use her once in a while for something, get my rocks off, and go about my business. That's not Christianity, and nor should it be the relationship that one has with God. You have to be able to be in communion with the man to understand the man and for him to know you. It's mutual. And that bridge has now been created through the one called Jesus. Now, when I try to tell people, hey, how do you live the Christian life? I said, part of it is you live it, and the other half is he lives it for you. Oh, how's that possible? He just takes over your life? No, 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 no. When I become, it's like if I go out, like let's go back to the wife analogy. If I'm going out into the public sphere and a female sees me, okay, and I am in real communion with my wife, I really love my wife. Whether or not I'm wearing a symbol on my ring finger that I'm married, I will be exuding it because I will not be looking at anybody else because that's my wife back home. No one else has that view for me. I don't look at anybody else that way. I'm not trying to get to know some other female that way. Some woman approaches me and starts to compliment me. Whether or not I accept the compliment has nothing to do with my relationship with my wife because nothing she says is going to affect my relationship with my wife. Now she says, "You're really hot. You want to go home with me?" I don't even have to address her. I don't have to look at fear and think, oh my goodness, oh, she just gave me an opportunity to do something wrong. And the first thing that flushes over me is fear that I might be stepping out on my wife. I wouldn't have that fear. You know why? Because I'm confident in the relationship I have with my wife. I can simply look at her and say, nah, I'm gone and walk off. Wouldn't even be a problem for me, wouldn't be a loss, wouldn't be anything because the relationship I have with my wife supersedes all the things I could possibly do in life. So, in other words, my relationship with my wife is being lived out through me. The same way God's relationship with me is lived out through me. No amount of man's influence is going to stop me from living that life. Even if they are angry with me, hate me, despise me, whatever, it doesn't really matter because the truth that I live out isn't mine. He has the relationship I have with God Himself, will be shown out. The same way this girl in the chat. You're so high and mighty, you act like you live the whole. It's not what I believe. I'm not trying to come across condescending, but I can't help but tell people what I know. Just because I can convey to Blackbird here what I believe does not make me condescend. I'm not looking down at anybody, nor do I look up at anybody. I don't think he's less than me or more than me. He's living his life. We are here to have a conversation. I'm not trying to convince Blackbird to become a Christian again or to go back to God. That's between him and God. I'm simply espousing for everybody listening that if I truly am following God, if I truly, truly am following God, there is no amount of influence that man can put on me that will be worth my life to put it on risk to not be with this man, be with this God at the end of all time. I'm not willing to put anything in front of that option at all. Right now, I have a relationship with him in spirit. I would love to be in person with God. And if living this life is the precursor to that, I'm going to do what I need to do, have to do, want to do to establish that end goal. If people don't want to do that, that is fine because that's part of free will. That's why God will never force himself. He didn't force himself on Adam, but he did tell him the rules of the game. If you do that, you live the rest of your life tilling the land, sweating. You can't eat until you sweat and till the land, and you're going to have birth pains. He gave the consequence of their action. Man has then lived with the consequence of earth dying beneath him because that's the fallen state of all things now. God withdrew himself from the man's life. He withdrew himself. He can only placate man by law at that point. He could not create a bond or bridge between them because the punishment was still enacted
I
until
mean,
the time that he decided the punishment was up and was giving you a way back to come back and talk to him directly
I disagree.
without the
Actually,
barrier of the fall.
didn't God consistently interfere with man on like a physical level?
Yes, he
For certain
interacted
points in
with
the Bible.
man.
Yeah, right. He
Yeah.
did. Usually very violently.
How so?
Or if not, or if he's
There were two instances where he was, well, three instances
literally
where he was really
flooded the
violent.
entire earth and killed everybody on the
Yep.
planet.
Mhm.
What about when he gaslit Abraham to kill his own son?
I don't know about gaslit. He asked him to do something and then pulled him back. How would you? And you see, you're attributing, and again, I understand why, because you're attributing the current event of things and how man thinks now to God, and I can't do that. That's not God.
Okay.
It is not.
I see it as if you trick somebody into seeing if how much they would worship you, because I don't know, maybe God is insecure, and he, wasn't sure whether or not Abraham would make the right choice or not. I don't know if he was still like hurt over what Adam did, and then it was like, no, I'm just kidding. To me, that's what gaslighting is.
Do you work
I know
out?
I'm using a very. I'm sorry.
But do you work out?
I have not exercised recently, no.
But you worked
I
out
have
before, right?
Yes, I
Okay.
have worked out.
Do you train your body to failure?
No, I'm very.
Have you heard of training your body to failure?
Yes, I have.
Okay, it's a very effective way to gain muscle and a very effective way to gain stamina.
Okay.
Train your body to failure. You push the body, push the body, push the body, push the body until the body can do no more work, and you stop. And you push the body until the body stops. Why is it then that if man can have that concept of training to failure, why is it that God can't allow somebody to be tested to failure?
Tested to failure? So what if Abraham failed?
What if Abraham failed? Who's in charge of the body and soul? Do you really think for a minute that Abraham, knowing God, would care if his son got taken?
To kill his own son?
Do you think it's a legit question? If God is in charge of all, do you really believe that if God told him to do something, that the end result would be horrible to Isaac's life?
Yes. So this is the point that we get into, that we can do through the word of God, and this is what people have used for thousands of years to justify horrible things like the Crusades, right? By using the word, because God said so, right? Then we can do, and we're not.
But God didn't. Okay,
so,
God never told anybody to do the Crusades, not once. So I don't know where you.
Of course not. No, of course not. But people have used this justification through the word, because the Bible is the word of God.
No,
right?
I said man has been known throughout the years to do things that God never sanctioned, and He will allow because man has free will. There are tons of time man has gone against God's will and has done absolutely everything. Heck, He put the Israelites in the wilderness for 40 years because of rebellion. Like, come on, it's not.
Which is funny because He literally sent Moses up onto a mountain, right? And then He made rules that the Israelites were not yet aware of, for Moses to come down and find them breaking those rules. That rules that they did not know about, and then got mad at them for
they were breaking rules already implemented. That were not new rules that they were doing. There was
the
not
Ten
new
Commandments
rules.
in particular. Like, not
they
he was
were not
specifically mad at them for
rules.
they made a golden calf, right? Which was a false idol, which He just made that commandment for.
That was long before. That was already established long before that you shouldn't do that.
In the Bible.
Yes, long before.
Where in the Bible?
Long before that, you weren't supposed to have gods.
Where in the Bible specifically does God say that you shall not have any other false idols? Because I remember Him specifically being very mad about that calf, which is one of the 10 Commandments. Where in the Bible previously did God say that you can't have any other false idols? What
gods did Moses have to encounter when he talked to the Pharaoh?
What gods did Moses have to encounter?
Who did the Pharaohs believe in?
Who did
the Pharaohs believe in? Who did the Egyptians believe in?
The Egyptians believed in Set. Ra,
many gods, right?
Egyptian gods, right? They
many
were
gods.
Yes,
there were many gods. Did they believe in the God?
No, they did not.
Were they His people?
The Israelites, or you mean the Israelites or the Egyptians?
The Egyptians were not His people, right?
No.
Why?
Because they didn't worship Him.
Exactly.
Yeah, but God made no
You have
devout
no.
rule
Hold
to
on.
do so.
Hold on. Why? Why is it that they were not his people?
Because it didn't work.
They
You can't
didn't
be you
worship
can't be the
God.
people of God if you don't worship that God, right? Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
You
right.
shall have no. You, if you follow me, shall have no God before me. That was in the Ten Commandments, right?
Which were
Good.
after the
Hold on.
Israelites made
Hold
that
on.
calf. Yes.
Hold on. Yes, that was written specifically in there. Okay. My question to you is this: do you not believe, or I'll put it this way better, you wouldn't believe this because you're not coming from my perspective. God was talking to man. Men went to very different gods. They were no longer his people. What would you deduce from that?
Say that
You
one
tell
more
me
time,
what would you
please.
deduce from that?
Say that one more time.
God is the God of man.
Okay.
Man decided that God wasn't enough and created his own people, his own God.
Right.
Case in point, the Egyptians.
Right.
They were then no longer his people. What would you deduce from that?
It's not what I would deduce. It's what the Israelites would deduce. So the thousands of Israelites were not speaking to God. God was speaking to Moses,
Mm-hmm.
right? So Moses had the word of God, and Moses tries he may spread the word of God to the Israelites. But I don't think the Israelites were focused on just God. They were focused on being slaves, and they knew that that was wrong. And I don't think that they cared for the gods that the Egyptians believed in. They cared for not being enslaved, which is what Moses preached, right? My God says that you shall not enslave their people. So,
Now, okay.
right.
Now, where did the Israelites come from when they were given those Ten Commandments? Just before they got the Ten Commandments, where were they coming from?
It's been a while, Marlon. I can't remember every single thing about Exodus.
Okay, so they were coming from the said place we were talking about, right? They were in captivity,
Egypt. Okay, I thought you meant like right before that.
right?
Okay, I know
Yeah,
that they were in the desert for a while. Yeah,
right. And so, what did they do in Egypt?
they were
Egypt
slaves.
worshipped multiple gods.
Right.
Okay, if you were there for a while and you saw this happening over and over, multiple gods,
Hmm.
why wouldn't he put a commandment? Hey, you ain't gonna have no gods but me.
Well, because when you think about the Israelites after they fled Egypt, right, and then they
Mm-hmm.
were, I guess they were getting bored in the desert while Moses was up on the mountain for too long, whatever it was,
Mm-hmm.
right? They were like, hey, let's freaking have a huge party or whatever, and do whatever. And do you think that they knew that there was like a single God, or he was like
Yes.
the okay? So you're saying that they willingly made the choice to turn to not to other gods in particular, but right, but to have an idol in this particular
Mm-hmm.
case, which God is like
Yeah.
vehemently against an idol. I guess to look upon to worship, and that's why God got upset.
I do believe that they did exactly what they did because of rebellion. Yes.
Rebellion because like Moses was like up there too long, and he was. I guess they lost faith in him, right? That he wasn't coming back.
Regardless of what their reasoning was, they
Right.
knew better and did wrong.
Okay.
You,
So then God made
now,
that commandment.
what now? If you have to understand too, what Moses, what he witnessed, he got mad about, and even he sinned by breaking the Ten Commandments on the ground. You understand?
Right.
He just came from witnessing God directly.
Right.
Like his face, shee, and he came back down all holy. And as soon as he witnessed something that he didn't like,
Damn it.
now what I'm telling you is this: I cannot base man's reaction on a holy God. Moses literally just came down inundated with the glory of God, and he was shining. Woo, man, I'm holy. And as soon as my brother saw something on an earthly manner that was like, woo, he acted on it. Now, is that reflective that God didn't do what God did? Or is that reflective that God made him angry? No. Man chose a manly route. The commandments were still intact because it was still true. God was still who he was, regardless of how Moses behaved. And David was a man after God's own heart. That's what we keep hearing. Well, that must mean that God's heart is sinful. No, he was always after God's heart. And if you're always pursuing something, you're always after the heart of God. That doesn't mean that at times you're not going to reach your goal. David failed multiple times at doing that, but every time he failed, he realized it and went back, or that confession thing, did his sacrifice, did his penance, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
I cannot judge man's action and plant it on God. See, that's what God's okay with that. That's a God thing. You Christians, see, when you do that, that must mean that God's okay with bigotry. That must mean God okay with hate. Oh, look, the Crusades, God's okay with that. Oh, look, slavery, God's okay with that. Man's action does
I
not
say that God
reflect.
is implicit in that.
He is, because you have free will. If I take you, okay, you say to me, man, I really hate that guy over there. Or even not so much. I really dislike that guy over there. Man, I don't like him. And I like you. I really like you. You're a really cool guy. But you don't like that guy? He must have done something to you really, really egregious. I'm going to go kill that guy for you. You never told me to go kill that guy. You just told me you don't like him. You never even told me to go beat him up. But then when I go beat him up or kill that guy and I come back and see what I did for you? Bro, I didn't ask you to do that. That wasn't me. But I like you. Yeah, but just because you like me don't mean you're going to do that in my name. That's nonsense. You don't do that. That's exactly how. But what are you going to do? You don't know I'm going to do it. That's one thing. Even if I tell you I'm going to do this, the point is I'm not reflecting what you wanted. I am not doing anything you wanted to do.
Right. Well, let's say, for example, somebody ends up suffering, somebody you love ends up suffering, because God
Mm-hmm.
supposedly is all loving, right? And all good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so let's say somebody you love is suffering,
Mm-hmm.
and you have the power to prevent that from happening, but you don't.
Right.
What does that make you?
Okay.
Right.
I'll give you a
Which is how
personal.
I view, like, you
Right.
can't say God is all loving and all powerful if he refuses to destroy evil, if he's all powerful, or if he is all loving if he also refuses to prevent evil. um yeah, so
Right. Okay.
right, somebody's suffering, you see them suffering, and you just let it happen despite the fact that you have the power to prevent it. What do you
Right.
say to that?
Okay. Um. So if I see somebody suffering,
Somebody
I
you
have the
love.
power, and I have the power to prevent it,
Mhm.
and I don't, and the person wants to be done with suffering. Is that the other part of it, or you
I'm
don't know
pretty
what the
sure we would
person
all
wants?
want to be done with suffering. I don't know anybody who willingly
Eh,
wants to suffer unless like they're sadomasochists, but even that's temporary, right? I'm talking about actual true suffering, people starving to death in
Right, but
countries, people being
okay,
murdered and killed, right? People being
right,
tortured. What about
right.
those people, right? God loves them, but he allows them to suffer despite the fact that he can't stop it. How would you look at any other person, right? If I literally was watching my child
Mm-hmm.
suffer,
Mm-hmm.
right? Being tortured over the course of days, right? Because this is not like God is just like letting this happen over the course of a day or a
Right.
minute. This is like for thousands of years. Watching people suffer, and I can stop that person from torturing my child, and I don't,
Mm-hmm.
despite I can absolutely stop it from happening. It's their free will, it's the torturer's free will, and the person who's in that situation, whatever their decisions led them there. I have the power to stop it, I don't. Wouldn't you say that that would be like, I don't know, how would you explain that?
Okay, I'll give you two personal examples. Okay, one's my dad. My dad suffered quite a bit before he died. He was a Christian. Very, very, very strong Christian man. He got sick and he was in the hospital for, I think, a month or a month and a half. And he went from, I could look at him till I couldn't. That's where he went to. Okay. He swole up, but a week or so before he passed, he didn't want nobody seeing him in the family because of how he looked and how he felt. Now, mind you, he was suffering. Okay. He was suffering. He didn't have the view that you think he should have at that point. He just didn't. Um, while he might have been upset that he wouldn't see me grow and he wouldn't see the family grow up, he knew where he was going. So the suffering was temporary to him. While it was painful, it was temporary because of who he knew, and he knew the end. I, however, was left to be pissed at God. And when I tell you I was pissed at God, I was livid. at this creature they called God. So when I tell you I know how you feel about certain things, about how he allows this and allows that, and sometimes I even went to say, you made this happen. You caused this. I spent my days angry at this man, and I spent 30 years pissed off at God, literally 30 years pissed off, to the point where I would cuss at him out loud for what he did. And then one day, I'm sitting mad, and I remember this very specifically, this day, very specific day. I was sitting in my living room, and in one of those places where I was absolutely reliving my entire childhood and this so-called God that took him from me. Mind you, I was still going to church, still saying I'm a Christian, still saying all of the things and making people believe that I'm following this so-called God. And in my heart and in my relationship, you talk about the biggest middle finger you can show somebody, I was showing him every day. So I was an atheist trying to behave like, or I was an agnostic trying to behave like a Christian. But either way, I hated them, the entity called God. And I sat there in my living room and I was looking around it and I realized I'm in a house in America. I have a job and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking all the way back as to how I got here. And instantaneously, this revelation came to me. And I don't think it was just me. I mean, I don't think it was me just going back and thinking this wonderful thought that I'm so smart. But I can see the wisdom in a lot of the things now. I wouldn't be here in this location if 5 different events hadn't taken place, and one of them being my father's death. The reason I don't look back at it in anger anymore is because I finally realized, wait, my dad wasn't even mad. Who am I? The man who went through the suffering wasn't mad. He wasn't pissed at God. He was even, at some point, one in there, he was excited that he was possibly going to get to go home. My dad, the one who was suffering the most, he couldn't breathe, couldn't drink water, couldn't, like, he ruptured on his bed on his birthday. Okay, that's how much discomfort he was in. His body ruptured out. That's how he passed, in one of the most horrific ways he could possibly go. And he did not go out angry at God. But here I am stewing 30 years over the loss of a man who was happy to leave because he knew where he was going. I'm sitting in my room all pissed off at God. And look what you did. Look what you did, when the man who had the relationship with God that was suffering didn't care. And it came to me that I don't have that right, one, to dictate how someone else's suffering goes. And two, I don't get to decide how someone ends on this earth. But more importantly, I don't get to be angry at somebody who had nothing to do with it. Because again, the fallen nature of earth is what it is. Earth is going to take its course. It's going to die. Man's going to die. Everybody dies, either by a natural cause or by somebody else taking your life. I sat there and I was in awe that he could still communicate that information to me. And yes, I do believe he communicated that to me, because I've had experience since then that was not that vague, to put it mildly. I can't be mad because the person that I'm worried about suffering didn't suffer the way I think they suffered. They were talking to God the whole time and were content. I don't have that right to put that on God. He finally made it clear to me that we live in a fallen world. The world's going to be it is. It's going to act as it is because of the fallen nature of the world. Man's going to be mean to man. Man's going to be pissed off at man. My only true out I have of this world is to leave with him. Like you said, you are in the position and mindset you are because you were at one point following God. You saw something different and you moved away. And that is completely okay. Nobody has, I have never been okay with Christians telling you, oh, look, you're so dumb. How would you go away from God? And well, then you're just being just like somebody else. It's not any different. You'll either find him or you won't before the end of your life. You'll either seek him or you won't before the end of your life. But either way, you're going to do what you want to do before the end of your life. So it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. I can only tell you my experience with this person called God. I can only tell you my experience with having followed him off and on for the last 15, 20 years. But I can definitely tell you, I have been to the point where I cursed him, told him to shove it. I have told him everything any man could tell God, I have told him out loud, in my head, in my heart, lived it, and not cared a thing about God, to the point where I would have, if I could find him anywhere, I would end him. That's how angry I was with God. I've gotten there. So for me to be where I'm at now tells me two things. There is no place I can go to, angry at him or not, that he will not still try to reach me. And I'm not going to be so far gone that he can't reach me. So that's on mine. I can't tell Christians how to live, but I can tell them this. If you live in a position of fear all the time, you're not going to experience the real God, because in him there is no fear. Am I going to have bouts with it? Yes. I'm going to have bouts with it, but I don't live there. That's what I tell people with suffering. It's temporary.
So,
and I understand it's temporary.
So it's okay to us. It's okay for us to suffer, because whether or not we suffer in life, the destination that we're going to is really all that matters, right? Based on how we live
No.
our lives.
No, it's not because of the destination that matters. Let me rephrase it. My dad understood where he was going. That's different. Okay,
The
he understood.
destination.
Yeah, he understood the destination. He understood what was coming after he died, so there was no fear of death. In other words, okay, he wasn't afraid of dying. The suffering he was experiencing in life, he understood, was part of life. Some people will have suffering, and some will not go through as much suffering as others, but it's all part of life. Even
Right,
if it happens at the worst, it happens at the best. Either way, there's a spectrum, and it will happen in there somewhere. At some point in some time, you're going to go through something that you think is the most extreme suffering.
Absolutely.
That it may not be for someone else, but for you, this is just insane.
Yeah.
So I can't avoid that. Okay, so we can't avoid it. But how I view it, through what lens I view it, I sure can. I sure can decide that. And my father, who suffered a lot, viewed it through the lens of whether or not I suffer in this body doesn't matter to me, because the end of all of this will be no suffering.
Is what I said, right? So we often view this suffering, or we explain it away, that the suffering doesn't matter, again, because this life, what we do in this life, is essentially to prepare us for the next, right? So the suffering of this life, you shouldn't focus on, right? Or you should see as, I don't know, not a bad thing, I guess.
No, it's life.
Yeah, it's life. It's life. Because the next life is what truly matters, being with God, right? So God allows us to suffer because it doesn't matter. Then why not just bring us to the next life? If God wants us to be with him, why does he have to test all of us to find out if we're worthy? As a matter of fact, why does he even test us at all, if he knows what's going to happen to us?
So if he killed you right now, you'd be okay with that?
If God killed me right now?
Yeah.
Of course not. Well, I'd be okay
you
with
wouldn't
that.
You wouldn't care, because you'd be dead. But I mean,
well, afterwards, yeah, of course, yeah.
But afterwards, you wouldn't care either, right?
I care right now if I died, but afterwards, I would have no conscious existence.
But if God did it, then you would care, because then you'd realize, crap, there is a God.
Yes.
Yeah. But then you'd care, right?
Would I care? I would be shocked and astonished. I don't know. Like,
I'm pretty sure, but if it was him and the way he handles afterlife, you would care. But
absolutely. If I was wrong about God, I would very much be mad about going to hell. Yes, for sure. But I don't live my life that way. I don't live my life in the fear of going to hell. And
I'm not living in the fear of hell. I don't live in the fear of hell.
Of course not. A lot of Christians say that, but I think that that's nonsense, right? I think that a lot do. Yes, it's just explained in a way that it's not. It's not. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not an ultimatum. It's it's a gift, right?
I live in the knowledge of hell.
It sounds to me like to what like abusive partners say.
No. I live in the knowledge of hell.
You live in the knowledge of hell. The knowledge of hell, right? And the knowledge of things.
But I'm not afraid of it.
Yes, because you believe in God and you believe that you're going to heaven, right?
Right.
Which is right. So there's still the ultimatum that if you don't do that, then you go to hell.
No, no. That's, you see, no, because I'm not thinking anywhere near that place anymore.
You just think that I'm living the best life that I can and I'm going to go to heaven.
No, I'm not worried about the life I'm living as the best I can at all. That's not even the frame of mind that I live in.
Do you think you're going to heaven?
I
Or do
don't
you know you're
think.
going to heaven? You know you're going to heaven.
Yeah, I don't
You know
think
you're going
that.
to heaven.
Why would I just think it if I and live the way I'm living if I just think it?
What if you're wrong?
That's a kind of halfway way to, and then I just die. That's okay.
No, I mean, what if you're wrong and you die and God is like, nah, bro, you're going to hell.
And then that's what happens because he's the arbiter of all of it. What am I going to do about it at that point anyway? Like, what
You
can I
do.
really do? Exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. So why would I worry about that and sacrifice that? I'm wasting all that time worrying about it. And then I'm for sure going to end up there because I'm not focusing on the relationship. I can spend my entire life worried about hell. Okay? All of it. Oh, I'm not doing that because of hell. I'm not doing that because of hell. I'm not doing that because it's like I'm not doing certain things because my wife would leave me. Why not cheating? Because my wife would leave me.
Why is there an alternative in Christianity? Why is there an alternative?
Because
Right?
there's always good.
Why isn't there just like death and heaven? Right? Like why is there an alternative that allows people to suffer for eternity, by the way?
What do you think hell is? What do you think hell is? In terms of the true nature of hell, what do you think hell really is?
An existence where people suffer for all eternity in a lake of fire, like it's described in the Bible.
What's the one big thing missing from all of that?
What's the one thing missing from all of that?
Yeah, what's missing?
What's missing in hell?
Yeah.
Wi-Fi?
That too. But what else?
I don't know.
God.
Yeah, but God is the one who allows it to happen.
No, but the real hell is absence of God with no way back.
God, the existence of hell is burning in a lake of fire. Even if God is absent from that, he had to, if he is the creator of all things, Satan can't create things. Satan didn't create hell. God creates hell and then lets people be with him to suffer with him in hell. God made that for people who do not accept him.
Okay,
right?
So then you have a choice to escape it?
Abusive. It sounds like what an abusive partner does. Either you make this choice or you suffer the consequence. That's exactly what it is. And Christians have a very good way of wording this in a way that where it doesn't sound like, no, he's not saying that you'll it's go to hell or go to heaven. It's just accept him and go to heaven. And if you don't, you just so happen to go to hell. That is abusive thing. That's Stockholm syndrome.
Okay. Well,
I think Christians have Stockholm syndrome.
Well, let's put it this way. Let me. And
I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
I understand. Let me run your school of thought. Let me run your school of thought down the train. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's abusive to think as though there are only two options at the end of your life.
What do we have then? I would like to. Need you to actually.
No, you're asking me. You're telling me that it's an abusive thing to only give you
two options.
Right.
So what do we have at the end of our life?
Right. Well, you actually have that choice before the end of your life, but that's neither here nor there because you have the choice to live or don't live it. So
what choices do we have?
You technically
heaven or hell. What else do we have?
What do you mean? What you don't have no other choice? Not that you. No. You don't have any choice either way. The options of where you end up is either outside the house or in the house.
Oh, but I can choose based on my actions. So I absolutely do have a choice. I can choose to accept God. I can choose not to accept God. If I choose not to accept God, I go to hell.
Right.
That's a choice.
That's your choice.
I have two options.
You've decided
to worship God or not worship God.
But you're looking at it, and again, this is the difference between people who had to look at it like that versus the Christian, okay? Why would you pick God?
Why would I pick God?
Yeah, why would you pick God?
Because God wants me to worship him. God wants me to believe in him.
Then you would never pick God. Then you would never pick God. That's why you would never pick God. I can see why you won't pick God.
Why would you?
If that's your options of why you
God
pick
wants to be worshipped.
No. Okay.
God gets mad if you worship anybody else. He wants to be worshipped.
He doesn't get mad if you worship somebody else. You have that option. The result of you worship him.
It's so bad that he sends you to burn for all eternity in a fiery hell.
But that's the result of the choice you make.
Exactly.
Understand?
One of two options.
Okay. Again, if you want to not worship God, you are free to do so. The end result is the end result.
Oh, I'm sorry. I cut out for like a split second.
That's okay. If you choose to not follow God, you then don't follow God. The end result is the end result, as is. But
what does that mean? Be specific.
What do you mean?
You said the end result is the end result. Like
it's the end result.
I often notice that Christians very much try to not use charged language when it comes to these concepts. How about you just say, if you don't choose God, you go to hell? Why?
Well,
why
you will, but you know that. That's not hidden knowledge.
Why won't you say it?
What do you mean? Why won't I? Said that multiple
Right.
times throughout this whole conversation.
Right. Okay. So in this, you said the end result is the end result. Like it's
Yes,
like this
of your
ambiguous thing
choices.
that happens, right? So if you don't, right, it seems like nobody ever wants to blame God for this because it is his.
Why would
it's-
I blame God?
Because it's God's fault whether or not I choose to live my life the way I want to and not accept Him, and then He.
How is it his fault that you live the life the way you want to live? How is that his fault?
Because why should I only have to worship Him if my only choice?
You don't only have to worship him.
So what other choices do I have?
Not worshiping him.
And then where does that lead me?
Who cares? You're not worshiping
Where
him.
does that lead me, Marlon?
Hell if you don't.
It
What
leads
hell
you
if
to
you
hell.
do, right?
That is literally what coercion is. When you don't have a choice to do something or not because the end result
Okay, so
is
let
a
me ask you
very
this.
negative consequence.
Let
That
me
is
ask
what
you this then.
coercion is.
Well,
If
let
I
me ask you
told
this.
you, if I told you to eat an apple or I blow your head off, what
Well,
choice do you
let
have?
me put it to you this way. Okay? If God is who he says he is, he didn't have to give me a choice at all.
What does that mean? I'm sorry.
He didn't have to give me a single choice at all. He didn't have to give me a chance at all.
So you
He
said if
didn't
God
even
says who He says
he could
He is,
he could have literally had hell ready. The instant Adam screwed up, he could have just scooped Adam up. Didn't do that. Didn't do
Okay.
that. Why?
oh, you've answered this question already, right? Because
Right.
now
So then
He allows us to do whatever until
you get
till we
to
die.
choose whether or not, because like he told you, the end result is death. If you do that, Adam, you're gonna die. Adam literally heard those words and said, nah, you ain't go. And then when it finally happened, and then all he got, and Adam, now remember, he heard you'll die. All he heard was leave the garden. He didn't get smote right on the spot. He didn't get scooped up and crushed and smashed or thrown into the lakes of hell right then and there. If God is who he says he is, as the all-powerful God, he has the right then and there to smite you. Any sin you do that's against him, he can instantly kill you for. But that's not how he set up the system. And it's his system to set up. We still trying to attribute these man-made, well, he should have more of this option and more of this, because we want, and our wishes and our desires and all we want. Give us 15 options, please, God. If I don't serve you this much, I only get this much, or I get this. That's not how it works.
So we have an ultimatum.
You do.
Yes.
You do. And what's wrong with the ultimatum? What's wrong with the ultimatum?
Coercion. It's coercion.
Is that what the laws of the land are? Coercion?
They are the.
If you jump off a cliff, you will die,
yes.
but you won't fly. That's coercion?
If I make the choice to do that, that would be very stupid.
But right? That's a risk assessment you take, right?
It's a choice. Everything is. I'm not saying that everything is not a choice. I'm saying that the choices you make towards one or the other are limited because you know that the consequences of one are negative. And it's the only consequences of one, right?
But life is like that.
So if I know that jumping off a cliff will kill me, I choose not to jump off a cliff. But if I know, right, exactly, I choose to not jump off a cliff. But I can also choose to jump off a cliff. But here's the difference. Nobody's forcing me to jump off a cliff or not. What God does is God puts you at the end of a cliff and he says, either worship me or you must jump off. And if you don't jump off, then, well, I'm going to push you off.
Or he leaves you on the edge of the cliff with no way off of it.
He leaves you.
That is also hell.
You think that's okay?
What do you mean?
So again, this is a ultimatum.
You are still putting your manly worlds and your manly desires on an eternal being.
So let's say somebody walked me to the end of a cliff, right? And they said, either you come back with me, right? Or you jump off the end of the cliff, right? Obviously, as a person, I know that I'm not going to jump off this cliff because I don't want to die, right? But if you take away that choice, right? And like you say that, I don't know, this is so difficult to analogize to life because in life, we do a lot of things, right? Over the course of this, right? So let's say, there it is. Let's say I don't want to come back with you. I don't want to come back with you. You're somebody that I do not want to go with, right? I want to say that I want to have the choice to not go with you and to just do whatever I want to do, right? I don't want to come with you and I don't want to jump off the cliff. You say, no, you can either do one or the other, right? In this case, if I am forced to go back with you, you are a kidnapper. You have taken me against my will, especially if you threaten me and say that if you don't, then I'm just going to push you off the cliff.
But that's not how God operates, though.
It is how God operates.
No, if he did kidnap you and you were there before, why did he let you go?
So here's the thing.
You
Right?
escaped? Did you escape? You
What do you mean?
escaped the bondage of kidnapping because he kidnapped you before. You were
I mean,
following him, weren't you?
I don't know. I pretty much just kind of came to the conclusion of that, right? Of that thing. I don't know how you got there in the first place, but if he put me there, right? Because God supposedly creates us, he puts me there, right? And
You
then says
didn't
you can
follow
either come
God at
with
all
me.
for your own. You didn't at no point in your Christianity you followed him on your own will. At 0 point you chose to follow God. No point at all.
So
You said
no,
you
I
prayed every night. Was that your choice to pray
absolutely.
every night,
I
or you
prayed.
forced? You were forced to pray every night.
I believed that God was real, and I believed that God.
Okay,
I
but then
believe.
it wasn't forced.
No, it wasn't forced.
Okay, so you decided to follow him at one point.
Absolutely.
So did he just let you go out of bondage? Because you equated it to kidnapping and coercion. So I'm asking, did you just
Well,
decide?
if I don't have the choice, right? So it now we're not talking about the existence of living your life, right? Because when you live your life, that just gets to the end. We're talking about what happens, the consequence, right?
Uh-huh.
This is the difference between like ontology and like consequentialism,
Right.
right? Sometimes we base choices based on what we know is right, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like on its face, we do it because it's right. And hopefully the consequences of what we do that are right are right. And sometimes we make choices based on what we perceive the consequences to be, right? This is consequentialism in philosophy, right? We make choices because the end result will be good or bad, right? And sometimes we make choices because, like, if I choose not to lie, it's because I choose not to lie. Or I could choose not to lie because it'll lead to negative consequences. It really depends on how you view it. In the case of God, right, this is consequentialism. You can say to yourself in your life, throughout your life, right, that I worship God because I choose to worship God,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I know, right, that if I don't worship God, then I'm going to hell, right? And you can say, well, I choose to worship God because I want to exist in His image. I want the love of God. I want His acceptance, right? And I want to be like God. Or you can make those choices for yourself, but what consequences do those lead to? You say that if I live my life as a Christian, I know that I'll go to heaven, right? And to you, you can ignore the prospect of hell,
Mm-hmm.
right? But there's still the prospect of hell. That consequence still is being imposed upon man,
Mm-hmm.
right? So Christians, what I think Christians do is that Christians believe in God, and they don't think about like, oh, it's a choice of whether or not to go to hell. They say it's just accepting God's gift, right? And hell is the absence of God. But if that was so true and God truly just wanted us to worship Him and accept Him, then why give us eternal suffering as a consequence? Because there are people who will worship God. Like you asked me earlier, well, what if God killed you right now? And you find out God is real. Would you care? Well, of course, because now I would know that I was wrong and now I'm
Mm-hmm.
screwed, right? Because I'm probably going to go to hell because I didn't believe in God. That is consequentialism. That is the consequence
Do
of
you
not worshiping in God. Why
do
does He
you
have that there if He just wants your devout?
everything in life is black and white.
I disagree.
Everything.
I disagree.
Every single choice you make is black and white.
Okay.
Plain and simple.
I
Everything.
disagree.
If you don't do something, something else will take place.
But there's
Tell me I'm
nuance to
wrong.
life.
Tell me I'm
There's,
wrong that if no, that's cut and dry. You want to add nuance, but everything you don't do, you do.
oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I mean, you can say within choices, there's action and inaction, right?
Right.
Yeah, but that doesn't
Cut
mean
and
that life,
dry,
that doesn't mean
bam
that
and bam.
life is black and white.
It is completely black and white. It's all about
Not at all.
choice.
Our thoughts, our emotions, these are things that drive us.
All
These
about
things have
choice.
nuance, situations. So if somebody's trying to
They
kill me
have
and I kill them, am
influence
I
over the
wrong?
cut and dry. They have influence over whether you pick a cut and dry decision, but there's not a difference between the two. It's a cut and dry. You're either taking or you're not taking something. You're doing or you're not doing something.
Do you believe that you should?
Your idea and your thought process of going through it might influence whether you do something or do something. That's the nuance. But you decide, bam, whether you do something or not. It's
Absolutely.
cut and
Again,
dry.
choices, or when you think about this literally from like a scientific level, right? Action and inaction is black and white, but the choices we make in life, right? How we come to those choices, what we decide to do, is absolutely not black and white.
I didn't say
Uh,
that was black and white. Never
yeah,
said that was
but
black and
that's,
white.
I mean, more. There's more to life than just action, right? There's how you
Oh, is
feel,
there?
your experiences, your absolutely right, your perceived emotion, how you do things, right? Like, yeah,
Right. How
most
you do
definitely,
things. Yeah. But
right?
you still do it.
Yeah,
You
how you
have to
feel
go
about
through
it.
it
Absolutely, yeah. You can say that choices are action, and action, absolutely, right. But
completely,
what about
which
why we make those choices? What about the
no one
morality
cares
behind
why
those
because you
choices?
end up doing it. Just like you say, you don't know why Christians do what they do.
So
It
do
won't
you?
matter why they just do it.
So when you say that life is black and white, right? Do you think that there's a
Very.
difference between killing somebody because you wanted them to die and
It's still
killing
murder,
somebody in self-defense?
still killing, right?
What about killing somebody in self-defense because
But
they
it's
were going
still
to kill
death,
you?
right? It's still the removal of life. That's
So
cut and
if
dry.
so,
The
you think that
decision. Hold on. The decision I make to finally enact the act of death upon somebody
Mhm.
is very cut and dry. It happens. One, the person was alive. Person no longer alive. Very cut and dry. Like I said, your logic leading up to that decision is where the nuance lies. You have these thought process that you go through. You have this, but the act itself is cut and dry. That person was alive. The person is no longer alive.
but they were going to kill me.
It doesn't matter. The person
It
was
doesn't
alive.
matter.
No, because the person was alive and the person is no longer alive.
But
That's a
now
cut
I
and dry
wouldn't be
act.
alive if I
Either
let them kill me.
way, either way, the result was a very cut and dry result.
So I
He
should
was
just
alive.
so
He's
I should
now
just
dead.
so I should just die because somebody's trying to kill me.
No, I literally just said your thought process is the nuance. However, you got
Right.
to where you got to
Exactly.
decide,
Mhm.
that's different than the decision making of it's done. Bam, he is
I'm saying
dead,
that
and it's
thoughts and
cut and dry.
emotions, all of that is a part of life.
All
So
of
you can't just
that,
say life is black and white,
it is very cut
right?
and dry. Yes,
No, because
I
we don't
can.
just experience our
Okay,
life
let's put it this way.
merely
Let's put
through our
it.
actions. We experience our lives through thought,
So,
through perception, right? Through conception, right?
no, and is that do you have the choice to execute
Concepts.
that or not?
Yes.
Okay, is that not cut and dry?
Whether I do or don't do, yes, it is.
Okay, so if I decide not to contemplate something, then that's cut and dry. Life is cut and dry.
So again, you believe in consequentialism.
No, but life is cut and dry.
But so you believe in consequentialism.
It doesn't matter what I
You're making
believe.
an
Those are
argument for
factual
heaven
things.
and hell.
Those are pretty much factual stuff. So you want to
Absolutely.
equate the fact that life and death or heaven and hell is it's two, it's a
It's a
bad
dichotomy,
relationship. Yeah,
ultimately.
but you want to say that, but then you don't want to put it again. It's like you trying to
No,
tell
no,
me I don't want
I
to say
said,
hell.
I said that when it comes to actions, actions are a dichotomy.
Right, but
Actions
you
are
don't
do
want
or
to
don't
you
do.
want to dog me about the hell aspect of it. It's
Mhm.
very cut and dry. Hell or heaven, you either
Mhm.
worship me. It's not really a choice.
Mhm.
It's coercion.
Yep.
Life is coercion. If I don't work, I
Uh,
don't eat. If I don't get up, I'll sleep all day. I don't care what the motivations are. It's very cut and dry.
right. If I don't eat, I will die of starvation.
Right.
Right. So you
So
say to
is
yourself,
that is
like,
that bad of the natural earth to do to me? Should
no,
I
because
not be
that's
able to just lie in bed and be osmosisized into, oh, give me food and I should be able to just suck it in? Shouldn't that be an option? Why is that not an option for natural man to do?
because people don't want to die and people don't want to go to hell.
Yeah, but I'm saying didn't the earth just give me that option to feed? Why would I need to get up and work?
It's just not how biology works.
Oh, and who decided that?
Biology,
Cells smashing together, I guess, right?
essentially, yeah.
So you
Right.
believe in the randomness of life,
Yes.
but when the randomness of life goes contrary and there's suffering, how can you explain suffering then if you don't explain it to God? Well, how would you explain suffering?
Because we don't all suffer, right?
But I'm saying,
Um,
we don't all suffer. Yeah, we
No.
do all suffer.
No, no, no. I mean that we don't all suffer at all times. You can kind of think of this as like there is a doctor who has a saying called the worst suffering for all. Have you ever heard this term?
Yes.
Right, the worst suffering for all. If every single being in the universe was suffering the most that it ever could, right? We would call this the worst suffering for all, right? And the fact that we don't all live within that state of the worst suffering for all, it must mean that anything less than the worst suffering for all is better than the worst suffering for all, right? Which is the state that we exist in. Yes, we can suffer, but the universe
why?
is not made up of only this dichotomy where we're not all suffering the worst fate that we could ever have at all times.
But why? Why
What
is
do you mean, but
suffering
why?
even part of the natural order of things anyway?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on what you think is suffering, right? Like I could think that being hungry.
Well, you
is
obviously
suffering,
have
and,
a very good idea of what suffering is because you said, why does God allow it? So let's put
Right.
it to 5-year-old cancer
Sure.
situation, okay?
Absolutely.
Why?
Why?
Yeah, why is that? Why is that even taking place? Because remember, there is no God. We're going to go from your perspective
Sure.
now. We've
Yep.
gone from mine.
Mhm.
I've given you why I believe all of this can take
Mhm.
place.
Right.
Why 5-year-old with cancer?
There's cancer cells build up in the body, and the 5-year-old gets cancer. That's
So
it.
why should I feel bad then?
Why should you feel bad? Is it your child?
It doesn't matter. Why should I feel bad for any, like the Cancer Society for Kids? They want me to donate money. Why should I donate? It's natural. You can die or die. Just hurry up and die. You're just taking up air. Why should I care about humans?
Depends on what you care about. It depends on whether or not you believe that utilitarianism is good, or whether or not you believe that your level of empathy is equal to the amount of money that you can give away. Right? If I had $100 million, I would donate to the Cancer Society. But if I
Why?
have $10, I'm not going to give that away because I need it. That's why, because I need the money more than they do.
So selfishness wins in your world.
Everybody's selfish.
Ah.
Everybody's selfish, whether or not you want to admit it. Every single person is selfish in some shape, form, or fashion. That selfishness doesn't necessarily have to be malignant, but we're all selfish. We all want to live. We all want to preserve. This is just an effect of biology. We want to survive, right? Because if we don't survive, we don't reproduce. And the point of any biological, somewhat conscious being, or sentient in any way, even when you think about single cell organisms, is to reproduce and create more of yourself. That's just how we're made. So any actions that go against making more of yourself, like starving yourself to death, is bad, right? Because our living beings are designed to make more of what they are.
Is it bad, or is it just anti-life?
It's anti-life, I guess you could say. Yeah. Okay. So when we use the words bad and good, I can say that, like, we often use words like bad and good in ways that are not moral, right? Like, oh, this food tastes bad, or this food tastes good. There's nothing moral about that, right? It's just we use good and bad, right? But when I say bad, in this case, like starving would be bad for me because it would end my life. That would be anti-life. Is it morally bad? No. But again, morality is a different topic in relation to
So what would you consider suicide?
What would I consider suicide?
Yeah, good or bad?
Bad.
Why?
Are you asking me morally or in general?
Oh, let's go with both.
Sure. So in general, bad, because if I applied this concept universally and everybody killed themselves, then we would have no more people. Right. And if we had no more people, then we have no more concept of morality, because nobody would be around to
enact it. Yeah.
Enact it. Right. So I would say that suicide is bad if you apply it universally. I would say that suicide is bad morally. No, I wouldn't say suicide is bad morally. I would only say that it affects the people you love
so
negatively.
It's not
and in
bad
that way,
morally.
It could be selfish, but for the person themselves, if they want. So let's say you kill yourself and you don't have any loved ones. Is it morally bad? No, I don't think so.
So the morality is only internalized.
The morality is whether or not we as people are able to perceive that morality. If no people existed on this planet, there would be no people around to.
But you can perceive the morality of someone killing themselves, but you say it has nothing to do with morality.
Because I'm around to perceive it. That's why. Because I'm around to perceive it, as if I love them, that would be negative to me, right? But that would be a biased thing.
Do I think morally wrong?
Well, I've already stated that the action in and of itself of suicide, if you take away all other concepts of who's watching or who cares, is it morally wrong? No, I don't think suicide is morally wrong. I think suicide is a moral neutral.
But murder is morally wrong.
Yes, because you are now you are the one who is taking away the life of another person who wants to be alive.
Would assisted suicide be murder?
What is assisted suicide?
You ask me to kill you and I kill you.
Would that be murder in my eyes?
Yeah.
If I want to die and you killed me, would that be morally wrong?
Yeah.
No.
Why?
Because you are fulfilling, so in this case, right? And when you murder somebody who doesn't want to die, they don't want to die. So taking away their life is morally wrong, right? You're killing somebody who wants to be alive, right? Which is murder, right? In this case of assisted suicide, you're ending the life of somebody who already wants to die, right? You're going to make choices whether or not you can make them or not, right? Whether or not you didn't have the other choice, right? If I don't kill the person, well, they're probably just going to kill themselves anyway. But if you ask me to do it and then I do it for you, do I think that that's morally wrong? No, because in this case, I wouldn't perceive that as murder. And I'm not appealing to any type of legality. I know that in the United States, right? In the United States, like I wouldn't do that. Now,
I didn't mention law, but
right now, whether or not I would want to do it, whether or not I would feel bad about doing, especially if it was like a loved one. Would I want to kill somebody who I loved who wanted to die? No, of course not.
Why wouldn't you? But that's what they want. If you love them, you'd give them what they want. They want you to kill them. You can't love somebody and then say, no, I'm not giving you what you want. That wouldn't be, you can't really say you love them then.
But I'm selfish. So
you don't love them?
Of course I love them.
But just within limits.
Okay, so under what situation would this person want to die?
It doesn't matter. They want to die. They just want to die. It doesn't matter why. They just want to die. It's not up to you as to why they want to die. They just ask you to do it.
Right.
You love them. It's your wife. I want to die.
Right.
And I want you to kill me. Why shouldn't you do it? And then why should you do it?
Because I have emotions as a person, right? I love this person. I don't want to lose them. We build connection with people who we have. We don't want to see them gone.
Okay, then the
right? Which is
alternative
why I said this. I'm being consistent here. I said if somebody kills themselves and they have loved ones,
is
they can perceive that as morally wrong because they feel the pain of losing that person.
I
This
have a
is the
ratchet
same
for
thing
you.
for assisted suicide.
I have a wrench for you then.
Sure.
She says, kill me because I want to die, or I'll kill you. And then kill myself.
So in this particular case, I would look at this from so this is a very interesting situation. And I do appreciate the thought experiment. So kill me or I will kill you and then kill myself. In this case, somebody is going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, either she chooses who's going to die. If she chooses, it's two people. And if I choose, one person dies.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I would do the thing that leads to the least worst consequence, which is kill her.
Oh. So, but you love her.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't want
But
to
I
be
also
with,
love myself.
you wouldn't want to be with her if she dies, you go to none of
If she
that.
want, if she, but if she wants to kill me, if she
because she
wants
wants
to
to
kill
die.
me,
Yeah, because she wants to die and she'll take you with her.
so she doesn't love me if she wants to kill me
Why?
because she wants to kill me.
What if in her, and this goes back to what if in her nuance, she decides, you know what, I've seen this life and it's just getting worse. There's nothing worth living for. I'm going to kill myself. And I don't think there's anything worth living without me in your
Right.
world. So you should kill yourself too by letting me kill you.
Okay. Do you think that's true love, like some Romeo and Juliet kind of thing?
It's your definition of love. I have a different
absolutely
definition
not.
of love. I have
Yeah.
a different definition of love. So, I'm not telling you what your version of love is. We're talking about the decision of cut and dry here and the morality of it.
You see how I said there's a lot of nuance in this when it comes to emotion? Yeah, sure, the action may result in something, but there's still nuance in making the decision, right? Which is why you had to throw different caveats at me. Because under specific situations, under nuance, the morality of things can or can't change. Even if you make the action, in the end, every single scenario we've put forth results in the death of a person. Suicide, assisted suicide under threat of murder, and self-defense was the first one we talked about. All of these result in the death of a person, but all of them we view as very different situations, or at least I know I view them as very different situations, even if the end result is the same. That's why I say that you can't say that there's no that life is black and white. But say actions are.
So the end result is the same.
In every single situation that we put forth, yes, somebody dies.
Okay, good. And that's heaven and hell.
What do you mean?
In every situation, the end result is the same. Someone dies.
You mean just how is that heaven and hell though? Heaven and hell is the dichotomy, but you're saying that at the end someone dies, which is one thing.
Yeah, and what did you say about the precursor is what?
Nuance.
There you go.
Right.
That's the nuance, is how you get is the end result, right? So you have someone's going to die. That's the end result. And the end result in Christianity, in the world that we believe, is heaven or hell.
That's two things though.
No.
Not one thing.
No, that is one thing. It's death.
Heaven or hell is not death.
It is.
No, heaven and hell is the afterlife.
Listen. Whether you killed her or she killed herself, we define it differently, did we not? Yes. One is called suicide and one is not. What's the end result?
Death.
Perfect. Heaven and hell, suicide or killing. Either way, it's death. That's why I said
we don't view heaven and hell as death. We view heaven and hell as afterlives.
We view heaven and hell as an aftermath, right?
Right.
I'm trying to tell you, you're titling it because you don't believe in God, mind you.
That is correct.
The only analogy I can bring to you is your precursor. The only thing I can relate it to is my aftermath.
Which is two things, not one.
Yours is two things, murder or suicide.
No, death.
Yes.
It's all death.
No. Death is what you call your finality.
That's
what ours is.
Let's go back and explain, right?
You are talking from two different sides of the equators, what I'm talking about. I cannot equate for you heaven and hell because you don't believe that.
But I understand what it is.
But you don't believe it. So it doesn't matter whether you understand it or not because you don't believe it. Which is why it doesn't make sense to you.
No, it does matter, right? Because I think that you think that you have an understanding that I don't. We both fully understand what heaven and hell is. I'm
not saying what it is. Right. We're not talking about what it is.
That's exactly what
you have a problem with why.
Why? Yes. So here's the thing, right? So the why, right? When we talk about our nuanced situations, all lead to one thing, and that's death. It doesn't matter how, right? They all lead to death. What does
Right.
matter in the situation when you talk about the nuance is that they all lead to one result, right? You cannot say that heaven and hell is the equivalent to death because heaven and hell are not
I
one
didn't
thing.
say it was equivalent to death.
You did.
You said that. I didn't
No.
say that.
No, you did. You said
No. I said heaven and hell would be equating to your suicide or murder. And you told me I couldn't do that.
Okay, so let's go back to that then. So you're saying that suicide equates, I'm sorry, heaven or hell equates to suicide or murder. But the difference prior to that would be the choices you make to get there.
Right.
Right. So now this
Same
is
thing
becoming,
with heaven and hell.
no, because that's a semantical argument, right? You're
How?
saying
It's
because
a choice you make to get there. I don't
No.
see what the difference is.
No, because the both choices lead to death. Suicide and murder both lead to death. So it's one thing. They're
No.
both death. It's one thing. Heaven and hell
No.
are two different things.
No, they're not two.
I don't think you
They're
understand
not
what
two
I'm trying to
different
say.
things.
I don't think you understand what I'm trying to say, right? So you think so again, you can say suicide or murder. Those are just both semantical words that both equal death. You're both dead, right? So that's not the same as the nuance in life, whether you choose to live your life in a way that allows you to go to heaven or choose your life in a way that allows you to go to hell. These are not the same things.
How so? What's the okay? I'll tell you how they're the same. What is the main deciding factor?
That death isn't the deciding factor.
No. What's the main deciding factor between those things?
Whether or not you go to hell or whether it's
Whether it's murder or suicide versus heaven or hell. What's the main deciding factor?
Heaven or hell, murder, suicide. Deciding factor? I'm confused by your question. I don't understand. Choice. So if I'm murdered, okay, so you're saying, so if I'm murdered, I didn't choose to die. If I committed suicide, I chose to die.
Yes.
If I go to heaven, I chose to go to hell. But if I go to hell, I didn't choose to go to hell. I just chose not to worship God.
Exactly.
No.
It's choice.
That's not, no, not at all.
It is choice.
Did
you have the option? Hold on. Did you have the option to follow God when you were alive?
Yes.
Okay. Did you?
No.
Okay. What happens?
You go to hell.
Okay. Did you have the option to kill yourself or not?
Yes.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay. Did someone have the choice to kill you or not?
Yes.
Did they?
Yes.
Okay. What's the end result?
I didn't have the choice to die in that result.
What's the end result?
Death. Or suicide or murder.
And what's the precursor?
Whether or not I had choice.
What's choice?
Choice, right?
That's the similarity.
But here's the thing, right? And this is the problem with your analogy, right? Is that in one case, you have a person who is a moral agent, which is the murderer. They're a moral agent, a negative moral agent, right? They killed me.
Yes.
In my case of suicide, there is no moral agent. It's just me. No.
You are the moral agent.
No, because it's not moral.
You don't have morality when you do it?
It doesn't matter, right? I'm saying that I am not a moral agent.
That is the first honest statement you said all day.
What do you mean?
That is the very first one you said.
I already said that I believe that suicide is
no, not that.
What?
Not that. You just told everybody where your moral compass is.
What do you mean?
Your moral compass doesn't come from anything innate, anything outside. It's not something that all humans possess. Your moral compass or your morality is not morality at all. It's called selfishness.
What do you mean? How is
self-preservation above all else. That's above all else. That is selfishness. That is selfishness. That's not morality.
Everybody.
That's not morality.
I disagree.
Well, no, I'll tell you why it's not morality. Because when you try to tell me I shouldn't kill somebody else,
right?
But when you feel selfish, you'll do it. That's not morality.
That is a lack of. It is morality. It's
no.
Yes, it is.
No.
So morality isn't just things that are good. You can have negative
morality. It is an equation between the right and wrong, right?
Right.
So is there something morally right about letting somebody live and morally wrong?
Absolutely.
Okay. So where do you get your compass from? Your selfishness. You don't get it from anything else but yourself. That's selfishness.
Yes.
You just said it.
You can't tell me where I get my morals.
You literally just said it, though. I'm not telling you. You literally just said it.
What did I say specifically that gave you that impression?
Whatever you wanted to do.
Whatever I wanted to do?
If it's not, yes, this is exactly your word.
What do you mean? Suicide or?
Either way.
Wait. Me not wanting to die is
selfish. You
morally
said it.
selfish?
You said it.
Hold on. You
Did
think
he
that
not
somebody
say?
not
Did he
wanting to
not
die?
say? Did he not say he doesn't want to die because yes, it's selfish? Did you
What's
not say
selfish?
that?
What are
You
you
said
talking
that.
about?
You said
Whoa,
you not
hold
wanting to
on.
die is not
I
selfish.
think you're starting to misrepresent my position here, right?
No.
Yes. Right. So hold on.
Ask the people in the audience. They
If
weren't
you're going to
listening the whole
misrepresent my
time.
position, I have to defend it, right?
Okay, go ahead.
You said that the issue with being murdered and suicide is choice,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whether or not you choose to. If somebody murders me, I don't have a choice in that,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't want to die because I don't want to die. That's
right.
You can call it selfish if you want, but I don't think that's something that nobody here or in chat would say that they want to be killed by somebody. Nobody wants it to happen to them. If you want to say that that's selfish, then you can die on that hill if you want to, right? Now, if I want to die because I think that my life is miserable, that is a choice that I make. To me, there's no morality in it. You're just killing yourself because you don't want to be alive, because you feel like the prospect of death or the lack of existence is preferable to existing. That has nothing to do with selfishness, right? It's because you don't want to suffer. It's not an express of selfishness. It is a lack of happiness that allows people to commit suicide. So I'm not saying that. No, I'm not saying.
You said you wouldn't help the person commit suicide because you don't want to hurt. And you said that was selfish of you, and you have to be selfish because you don't want to do something.
Right, because I would see other options. I would look at, maybe we can get you therapy. Maybe we can do other things, right? Like, again, there's a lot of nuance in life that we can't ignore. You can put this into, of course it can come from us, right. but not all selfishness is morally negative.
Yes, all of it is.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
No, I disagree. Not all
selfishness
is morally
in
negative.
and of itself is indeed morally wrong.
Wrong. That is absolutely false, right? If I want somebody to live because I want them to be alive in my life, right? Or if I save somebody, I'm not even talking about somebody who wants to die, right? If I push somebody out of the way of a moving car because I love them, right? With less of a regard for myself, that would be selflessness, right? But let's say I didn't want them to die, so I pushed them out the way, right? Because I don't want to lose this person. That's not a morally negative thing to do.
But that's not.
I don't think
selfish.
Anybody would say that.
That's not being selfish because you put yourself in the way.
But I may not make that decision. No, absolutely, it would be selfish because if it was a loved one who I would never think twice of doing, or if it was somebody out on the street, I would definitely be like,
So you think selfish is only linked to the people you love?
You can be more selfish to the people you love.
Oh, no, that's not the question.
This is how life operates. Absolutely, no, because I'm not engaging in the question because I don't think you can only be selfish to the people you love, right? You can be selfish to others, but primarily we are selfish to the things that we hold dear. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Why is it bad to be selfish then? I'm going to go on a.
It's bad to be selfish. It's bad to be selfish when your selfishness allows other people to suffer.
But
that's
why?
when I think that it's.
But why?
Because other people are suffering because of your selfishness. If you have the ability to help others, I think that you, especially if you're not putting yourself in danger and there's no harm to you, then you shouldn't be selfish. If I have tons and tons and tons of money, personally, I think if I did, I would be giving that money away because I don't need. What do you mean, but why? Because of reciprocity, because of altruism, because I believe that is the right thing.
But that's what you believe, but why should I?
Why should you? You don't have to. You can make whatever choice you want to.
But that's not true, because if I don't, I get ostracized by people
who?
like you.
What do you mean? If you don't, if you had millions of dollars?
This is perfect. Yes, this is perfect. Exactly. Sure. This is perfect. Mm-hmm. Let's go to BLM.
Sure.
If I decide that it's a trash organization, in my mind, it's trash.
Sure.
What is then your view of me for saying that?
I would have to ask you a lot of different questions on why you believe that.
No. What's your view of me? If I'm just okay, I'll give you so you don't have to ask the question. No, I'll give you so you don't have to ask any precursor. Sure. I hate BLM, and I don't care why you don't. I hate BLM, and it doesn't matter what you tell me. I'm going to hate BLM. What's your view of me?
So, are we talking about the Black Lives Matter global
all of it? The
Network
Black
Foundation?
Lives, the movement, the statement, the organization, all of it. If I say I hate BLM, bam, and there's nothing you can say to convince me. What's your view of me?
I would ask you, why do you hate it?
Cause what's your view of me?
I can't have a view of you if I don't have an opinion. If I don't know why you hate it, I don't do that. I don't just make general overall judgments. Okay.
What's your view of me?
I can't make a statement on that. I would have to know why. Contrary to popular belief, I don't just go around putting people into boxes because they have a general worldview. I
Okay,
would ask you why, and if you could justify that, then maybe I would.
No, I have justified it before, and it's never been accepted as justification.
Okay, so again, I can't make that claim.
Okay,
just
I'll help you.
Because,
I'll make
sure.
sure I'll give you an exact answer, so
Sure.
there's no more questions or nuances to it.
Right.
Mind you, the following statements may or may not express exactly what I believe about the term BLM.
Okay.
That's my precursor.
Sure.
Nothing they do helps. All they do is back criminals. They only back really anything for LGBTQ. They have done nothing for black people whatsoever, and they only show up around election.
Okay. I will tell you that information is false.
How?
So I would say that your hatred for BLM or thinking that it's trash is based on ignorance, because you have not done enough research to find out, one, what they have done for the black community. Two, that when it comes to LGBTQ, that is intersectionality. It's because when you have multiple parties who know what oppression is, those people can find a common ground within those things. And three, what was the other thing you said? That they support criminals?
And they show up every 4 years.
And they show up every 4 years also, which is not true. So they don't show up every 4 years. It's absolutely not true. When it comes to support of criminals, we didn't pick like George Floyd. We believe that somebody not complying with the police shouldn't mean that police should have the right to execute people. If you do believe that, again, if that's the hill you want to die on, I don't know what to tell you. So I would say that your belief that Black Lives Matter is trash is absolutely based in evidence that is completely false. So I would say that is ignorance. I would say that your view of hating Black Lives Matter is ignorance.
Okay. So, and then I tell you, I have done my research by both looking at the website and looking at multiple news sources and experiencing protests myself. That's why I came to the conclusion. Then what?
I would tell you that the information you looked up is, or I would say that you're either lying, right? Or the information that you deduced, you were not able to deduce properly because you didn't look into the proper sources. You looked into sources under your own biased view. If you say you've gone to protest, how did those protests turn out?
Okay. Oh, it doesn't matter how the protests turn out.
It does matter.
No, not really, because it's a protest. I mean, it's peaceful.
Okay.
It
so
doesn't matter.
Did you not like the protest?
It was okay. I mean,
okay.
We shouted a couple of times, and you know.
So why would you not like
because
that?
nothing got done. It didn't.
What do you mean nothing got done? Do you know how grassroots organizations function?
Yeah, I do. But
Apparently
that's not.
not,
This is all hypothetical. Remember, right? This is all hypothetical. I told you before at the beginning. This does or may or may not espouse my. Okay, so don't try and push. Don't try and push to get an answer of my belief system, because this is not. You don't know if this is my belief system.
Okay,
I'm giving you a hypothetical.
Okay, so I'm gonna say that to this hypothetical person that if they went protesting and believe that nothing happened, then they don't understand how grassroots organizations work, and they don't understand how protests work.
Okay. I would say. Now, we're out of the hypothetical.
Sure.
You have the exact same stance as any Christian would have.
That I don't know enough about it.
No. You honestly, I'm looking at what you just did when I presented my argument. You did exactly what Christians would do to an argument presented by someone who wasn't.
How so?
You don't have all the facts. You don't understand how it works. You don't know what you're talking about. All of the information you have is wrong, or you didn't dig deep enough. All of those things you just did to me because I didn't believe in BLM. Christians do. And you have a problem when a Christian does that. Meanwhile, you just did the exact same thing to me because I don't believe in BLM.
Because I have evidence that backs
I do
up.
too.
No, I have factual evidence, not just the book that says so. I don't think you do. Right? I have actual
I don't think you have factual evidence because I have things that can contrary to. I have evidence that's contrary to what you believe for BLM.
Right. So when it comes to BLM,
I can present to you.
So I have evidence on how grassroots organizations work.
I do too.
I have evidence on statistical data on how protests work, right, and how those lead to change. And I have evidence of actual changes in the Black community. I have actual of how BLM has actually had laws changed, right? And systems that are like things like
Uh-huh.
the police, right?
Uh-huh.
I have actual evidence to
I
back
have
up all
actual
these things.
evidence
What
of,
you
of,
have,
of miracles.
you have a book,
I have evidence of miracles.
your own anecdotal evidence. I have
No,
empirical
no, I
evidence.
have people,
Anecdotal.
not anecdotal,
It is
documented
anecdotal
by doctors,
by
documented
doctors.
by doctors.
Like what, for example?
Cancer
What about it?
removal
The removal of cancer
without surgery,
without surgery.
stage 4.
They just
It just gone.
they just beat it. I would love to see
It's
this.
just gone. Oh,
Is
you
this
you do now.
absolutely?
Hey, if you really want to see this,
Mm,
because it exists,
mm,
and I'm not the only one. I'm betting
mhm,
you right now,
mhm.
there are at least 5 people in the audience right now that have seen that firsthand, not just with cancer.
I would love to see
So
it.
for you to tell me,
Absolutely.
no, but for you to
I've
tell
I've
me
heard stories
unequivocally,
of miracles, obviously, even in the modern
but you
day.
can't tell me just because
Mhm,
you didn't see it, just like you tell me I don't know what grassroots and I don't see the changes happening.
mhm.
You can't tell me the same way I can't tell you about BLM that what I experience is untrue. I am literally telling you everything from the beginning of this conversation when I put this BLM situation to you. Everything you said in the exact way you did it is the same problem you have with how Christians approach Christianity.
Not at all.
You exact same words, bro.
Not at all.
Like literally
No.
the exact same, verbatim.
I say those words because I have empirical data to back up those words.
I do too.
I don't think you do. I don't think any Christian does.
But just because you think I don't does not mean I don't.
I'm more than happy to be shown.
I have in my own life, just mine alone,
Anecdotal.
not
It's
that.
anecdotal.
So if I prove to you that's still anecdotal, really?
Yes. No.
Wow.
Can you prove it to
Wow.
me?
That's
No.
amazing.
Hold on.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Hold on. I heard your question backwards. If you can prove it to me, is it anecdotal? No, not if you can prove it to me. Then that's different. But you're still giving me an anecdotal experience, and until you can do that,
Wow.
like would you really sit here and try to validate an anecdotal the anecdotal nature of God as proof of God's existence?
I can prove to
Meanwhile,
you
I
that
have empirical data on the things that Black Lives Matter has done. It can prove
I
that nothing that I said was based on my experiences. You never heard me say I went to a protest and I saw that it worked, and
then
I
how
did
do you know
this
it
and I
worked?
saw that it worked.
So you're taking
What do you mean?
everybody else's word for it?
No, I have empirical data.
But you didn't do it. But you didn't do it.
It doesn't matter. I know how to read.
Oh. But you've never had any of that stuff happen in front of you. You just
So
believe
hold
it.
on, wait a minute. You mean to tell me that if I look up a law that was put into place because Black Lives Matter protested for it, that's not empirical data?
It doesn't mean that it's actually being enacted. Yeah, because you
Yes,
don't
it
see it
is.
enacted. You
Because
don't
it's
see
in
it.
the law
Wait,
books.
show me. Oh. So it's in the law books, which means it's taking place.
Yes, which means that you can be violated for breaking those laws. Doesn't mean that
Every
nobody's
law that's
not
in
going
the
to
law
break
books is
laws.
taking place.
Absolutely right, which is the reason why. Yeah. So what the argument? I guess
You're
can try to
believing in
make
a
it,
book,
right?
then. You're believing in a book.
No, I'm believing in law, which is things that we have. Laws enforce or protect rights. We have rights. Laws are used as the enforcement
Look,
of
I understand that
protecting
you have to keep it. I know you have to keep it, but I'm telling you right now, everything you're doing right now, everything you're doing right now is what Christians do.
No, I have
Yeah,
empirical data. You do not,
that's what Christians say.
because they have confirmation bias.
But that's what Christians say. I'm saying
Confirmation
everything you're
bias.
doing right now is what Christians do. What
Confirmation
makes yours
bias.
better than Christians?
Because I have no confirmation bias. I don't care
You
about
don't.
how I feel about it. I care about the empirical data. I care about what is factual. I care about what can be shown, what can be proven, and what can be observed. I do
Okay,
not
let me
care
ask you-
about
let me
people's
ask you an empirical-
anecdotal experiences that, oh, I felt the spirit of God and he spoke to me. That doesn't mean anything to me.
Okay, no,
It's
I didn't
not
even
proof.
mention that.
I'm not saying
once
you.
did
I'm
I
saying
mention
just
that.
I'm just giving a general example.
Okay, so here, let me ask you a question then. Which has killed more people, police or gangs?
Police or gangs, I don't know because I don't have that information in front of me.
Well, okay, let's put it this way. Which has killed more black people, police or gangs?
Probably gangs.
So which one's been, in your opinion, by how much?
By a lot.
Well, give me a number. You don't have that number. You don't have
I
that
don't
number
have
in
the
your
number
head.
in front of me, no.
Why wouldn't you have that number in your head?
Because I can't retain all the information I've ever looked up at all
Okay,
times.
but it's empirical that it'll be more, right?
Sure, yes.
And exponentially more.
Exponentially, yes.
So if it's exponentially more, I would say probably about 100 to 1.
Right. Sure. We could say 101, we could say 1,000 to 1. Doesn't matter. The
Well,
number
it
might be up
kind of
there.
does because empirical. I'm going off
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the
we can say
empirical.
100 to 1, 1,000 to 1. I'm saying that how much more it is. I know that it's exponentially more than police killing people than gang members killing other black
Which
people.
is more important to look at then?
What do you mean? Which is more important to look at? They're both equally important.
Not really.
Yes, really.
Okay, so you're telling me that an ant bite is just as dangerous as cancer?
Of course not. That's ridiculous.
That's the difference.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
No, they're both societal issues that need to be addressed.
Has an ant bite ever killed anybody?
Of course not.
It has. Actually,
You're
it
making
has.
a false equivalency.
No, has an ant bite ever killed anybody?
Sure, if you're saying
Okay.
yeah, sure. If they're allergic to it,
But exponentially, cancer is killed more.
yes,
Cancer is more of a danger than an ant bite.
yes.
Gang war and death is way more important to look at than police killings.
So you're drawing a false equivalency to something
How
that
so?
may, because poisonous ants don't live everywhere in the world, and then they're not going to kill everybody unless they're allergic to them specifically, right?
That's not true. But okay.
Yes, it is.
No,
There are no. What ant do you believe is poisonous?
it's
that
not a
kills
matter of
humans?
poison.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not even a matter of poison.
Why would somebody die from an ant bite?
Because if you get multiple of them,
So if you get a lot of ant bites, you die from
But it's an ant
lots of poison.
it's an ant bite on
No.
one person.
So wait, are you equivocating?
I didn't say one
bite to
ant.
being-
I didn't say one ant. I did
That
not
would,
say
that would have been
one
nice
ant.
to know. That would have been nice to know.
But I didn't say one ant. I said ant bites.
Anything that's too much of something can kill you. If I get stung by too many hornets, I'm gonna die. If I get stung by too many,
But
bees,
how
I'm gonna
often
die.
do the hornets death happen? Is my question.
That's a ridiculous thing, though.
How?
Because you're drawing a false equivalency, right?
Okay,
Because-
it's not
because-
false equivalency. Okay, let's
Because
put it.
an ant bites you out of instinct. It doesn't do it because it has any malicious intent. It
How
doesn't
do
do it because it has choice.
That has
It
nothing to
doesn't-
do with the case.
Because yes, it does. It has
If it
everything to
isn't-
do with the case. Cops who kill black people.
How often does that happen?
It doesn't matter how often it happens.
It does
shouldn't happen at all.
It
No, it
does
doesn't.
It
No,
does too.
Because so here's the thing, right? If you're comparing the death of George Floyd,
It doesn't
to
matter
an
why
ant
it's
fight,
happened. Is that
I
what you
don't
said?
know
It
what
doesn't
to
happen
tell you.
why? It doesn't
What do you-
matter why it happened.
No. I said that it does matter why it happens, as the equivalent to an ant bite, and like Derek Chauvin leaning on George Floyd's neck for 9 minutes. There is a major difference here. The answer
So
doesn't have any
nuances
agency.
in that don't matter then, right? Nuances
mean?
in that one don't matter.
I'm telling you, the nuance does matter. This is
So what's
exactly
the
what
nuance
my
in the
argument
George
is.
Floyd death? What's the nuance in the George Floyd death?
That Derek Chauvin was a conscious person, a person with agency, with
Uh-huh.
moral agency, who
Right.
had the ability to make decisions, who had the
Mhm.
ability to stop his decisions, and
Mhm.
ant bites you out of instinct. It's done, it's over.
Oh. Did somebody kick the ant nest?
It doesn't matter. This is a false equivalency.
Doesn't matter if someone kicks the ant's nest. It just matters that the ants bite.
Of course, if you kick an ant's nest, the ants are going to come out and attack you. And whether or not you die is whether or not how many ants bite you, right? This is a
I'm
matter
glad you're
of
saying that because I fully
quantity.
agree with you.
The ants don't have a choice.
Hmm.
Ants don't make conscious decisions. They do things based on instinct. Humans do not. We don't get this, right?
We don't get instinct. So
Wait
there's
a
no.
minute, hold on. So if a bunch of ants like swarm me and murder me because I kicked their ants nest, do we gather up all the ants and send them to jail?
People do that. Yeah, they just
Do we gather up the ants and send them to jail?
They relocate the nest, but
To get them away from people so that they don't die, right? But we don't punish the ants, right? We're not
that is
punishing the
punishment.
ants. No, it's not.
Because you moved them from where they were. They were
It
happy.
doesn't
where
matter.
they
So
were.
they
You
can
kicked the
they're
nest.
not happy. Ants don't feel happiness.
You kicked the nest.
No, they don't know the difference between one area and another.
But we're not talking about the nature of ants. We're talking about the activity. You want
we're
to
not.
equate
We're
the
talking
nature.
about the nature of people and their actions.
No,
right? If
I have never brought that into the question
we're
at
talking
all.
about causality versus culpability.
No, you are bringing in culpability. I'm not bringing that in at all.
Yes, which you
No.
should. You
No,
need
you
to bring in
can't.
culpability.
No, you can't.
Why not? You don't think
Because
Derek
we're not
Chauvin is
talking about that right
culpable?
now. None of that was in the question.
This is what we're talking about. You're trying
No,
to compare.
I am literally asking. We're not comparing anything to anything. I'm literally asking you,
You brought
which
up
happens
comparison.
more? You told me
I
which
already told
happens
you which
more.
happens more.
So when I ask you which happens more, and you're not
Right.
focusing on the fact that that happens more, but you're focusing on the one that happens less
Doesn't
because
matter.
of who's involved,
Yes.
that makes no sense.
Correct. Because cops have an obligation to protect people, gang members do not.
So they're allowed to do that.
No, they're not allowed to do that. Allowed by who? Who is allowing this?
Wow.
Who's allowing this? Cops, right, have a legal obligation right, to protect people.
So do
right?
people.
This
People
is
have a
their
legal
duty.
obligation
No, we
not to
don't.
kill people. People
Yes, I
have a
have.
legal obligation not to murder. That's legally obligated to not murder.
Correct.
Gang
Right?
members legally they have the legal
Illegal.
obligation not to murder, but they do
Correct.
it.
Just like everybody else, right?
So
Unlike
why
cops,
are they not held to the same
Be-
standard as cops who kill 1 or 5 a year?
because cops have a job to protect. A cop's job is to prevent death. A gang member's job is
That's
not to
not their
prevent death.
job. That
Yes,
is
it
not
is.
their job. It's not
Okay.
to prevent
So
death.
okay, so their job is to not kill people.
That
as a
is not
cop,
even their job either.
especially. So what is a cop's job then? Please inform me.
Enforce
Serve and protect,
the law
right? Serve and protect.
and to preserve
Serve
the law.
and protect.
And to preserve the law.
And
Do
what
not
do they
ignore
do
that
by
at all.
preserving the law?
Anything is allowable to preserve the law.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No. So you mean to tell me that you believe that cops can kill people
Yeah.
for like stealing something?
Is that part of preserving the law from stealing?
Yes.
Okay, so let me ask you, if they stole a car and took off with it and he got shot in the car.
No, it's not what I'm talking about. Do you think that
What?
if somebody steals, because right, we're not talking about the level of stealing. You think if somebody steals a
Oh,
candy
now
bar,
you don't want to go into the nuances of it.
what are you talking about? No. If somebody steals
First,
a
you
candy,
went into the ant's
You think-
behavior, but
you
you won't
think-
go into the behavior of
No.
stealing? That's
you agree
weird.
with God. You just said, right, that they are allowed to serve the law or preserve the law at any cost. So I asked you, do you think it's okay that if somebody steals a candy bar at any cost to preserve the law, should they kill that person?
If the law answer says, if you steal, you die, yeah.
You think that somebody should be murdered for
If the
stealing
law
a candy
says,
bar?
That's
That's not what the law says.
I
And
didn't say the
cops
law
must
said.
follow
I
the
did
law.
not say. Okay.
So why you're using
I
a
didn't say.
hypothetical compared
Hold
to
on.
fact fallacy?
I didn't say the law said so. You presented to me something about stealing that you know has nothing
You
to do
said
with
at
killing.
any cost. You said at any cost. That was your
Preserve
words.
the law at any cost, and whatever the law says.
You said at
If
any
the law for
cost.
stealing does not equate to killing, obviously you don't kill if it's stealing. It's
So
not
do
part
you-
of the law.
So do you think that resisting arrest is punishable by death?
It depends on the resist that you're doing, obviously.
So do you think that do you think that resisting arrest is punishable by death? Yes
I
or
think
no?
if you resist arrest to the point where you put other people's life in danger, you should die. Yes.
That's no. Do you think that resisting arrest should be punishable by death?
It
Yes or
depends.
No.
It depends.
Do you know how many
Depends.
crimes? Do you know how many crimes currently in the United States are punishable by death?
Yeah, a few of them. But what does that have to do with the
42.
conversation we're having now?
There are 42 crimes that are punishable by death under the United States.
Hold on. Oh, okay.
Resisting-
Whoa. Punishable by death at the execution of a cop or by law after the jury has made the decision?
Always due process. What do you mean?
Okay, then we're not talking, but you're implementing
A
that.
cop killing somebody isn't due process.
But you are talking about a place outside of that. So you can't give me the 42
No, I'm
instances.
not.
You can't.
No,
You
because
can't.
everybody must follow these laws.
No. Because if a cop shows up to a standoff with a man holding a gun to a woman's head, you can't wait for due process to execute that man.
Absolutely.
Then you
Right?
can't give me 42 cases
No.
that have to do with the case law,
I'm
but that
talking
has
about-
nothing to do with what we're talking about.
So here's the thing: things like aggravated murder and stuff like that, which in your case that would be, is punishable by death. So I am being consistent.
No, because you just said after the jury has had due process. That's what you said. Those 42 cases were due process. You told me that.
If we're talking about crimes
You
that are
just said it.
punishable,
Then tell me that's not what you meant, because that's what you said.
so for example, I guess I need to be a little more specific. If there is a crime that is punishable by death in the United States, right, and there is a cop, and these are like very extreme aggravated crimes. I'm talking about like bioterrorism, terrorism, right? Possession of like explosives, stuff like that, right? Those things are like punishable by death, right?
Mhm.
If anybody witnesses those crimes, especially a cop, right, it is their duty to execute that person because those crimes are punishable by death. The thing that is not punishable by death under these is resisting arrest. It's not punishable
Okay.
by death in any instance ever, whether or not they're doing it.
So
Now, if the causing of resisting arrest leads up to aggravating circumstances like driving a car and ramming it through 5 people, that is no longer just resisting arrest. That is other
holding a
crimes
gun,
that the
holding
person
a
needs to be
gun,
prevented for.
holding a gun that belonged to an officer,
Mhm.
pulling it from him.
Mhm.
That's not grounds for.
That's
getting
self-defense, but that's not what happened with Derek Chauvin. That's not what happened
But we're
with
not talking.
Tamir Rice. That's not what happened with Eric Brown. That's not what happened with Philando Castile. So like,
Oh, it didn't
what are
happen
you
with
talking
Philando
about?
Castile.
Why? So because you're trying to not at all. You're trying to use like the lowest common denominator, right? To
No,
make your
I'm not.
argument, which you, yes,
I'm
you
not.
are. You're saying
I'm
that
not.
if somebody pulls a gun off a cop, of course the cop should be able to shoot them.
You
We don't
brought this whole thing.
arguments in those cases.
Listen. You brought all of the fields into the situation I proposed to you. I originally told you that if one situation yields more death than the other, why is it that the one with the least amount of death is getting the most airtime?
Because it's not about the amount of death. You're looking at the wrong factor.
So you don't mind that there's a large amount of death in one situation. It's a matter of the situation behind the small deaths that matter. So it doesn't matter about the amount of life lost. It's the reason behind the small life lost.
It is not about the loss of life in general. It is about.
Oh.
Okay, hold on.
That makes that I can believe.
It's not about the loss of life in general. It is about whether or not people are punished or not. Right?
The gangs are not punished. The gangs are not punished. So that makes a lot of sense to me why BLM is. They're not, because they're still killing people at an exponential rate.
Who's doing the investigations?
If they were punished at the rate they were killing people, the rate would be going down. It's going up.
So, when gang members
get stitches.
So when gang members commit crimes, right? They have same thing with cops. They have the same laws. Cops are part of a gang, by the way. They have the same laws that gangs have, right? Snitches get stitches. You're not allowed to tell another cops.
You're going into a whole different field. We're talking about something very specific. Okay. Stay on topic.
So a gang member commits a crime, right? He gets caught by the cops. He goes to jail. Justice. A cop kills somebody.
That's how it happens?
I'm saying.
And you're telling me I don't know how grassroots on the ground goes?
Hold on. I'm saying that in a situation where it does happen, right? If somebody commits a crime, they get caught. If they get caught, they go to jail.
Did Chauvin go to jail?
Right? I'm sorry?
Did Chauvin go to jail?
Yes.
Did he get punished?
Yes.
Okay.
That's one example. We literally had to riot for that to happen.
You didn't have to riot because you didn't even wait.
What do you
mean? He got arrested the day after. What are you talking about?
False. 5 days. Okay, 5 days. 5 days after. All right. I believe George Floyd was killed on the 23rd. He wasn't arrested until like the 28th or the 27th.
Ooh, 5 days.
Derek Chauvin, right? Yes.
Okay. And
so wait a minute. If I kill somebody and somebody filmed me on camera killing somebody, you mean to tell me
that they did? It took 2 weeks for them to find the guy that shot the cops in the car. What's your point?
Find them. Derek Chauvin is a cop where we know he
was on film.
Yes, exactly. Who was on film?
The guy that shot the 2 cops in the car.
Did he hide? Did he run?
So wow.
Was he chilling in his house? Was he chilling in his house just waiting to be arrested? Because I'm pretty sure that's the first place they would have gone to. These are not the same. And you know that this is
how is it not
argument? Because we know
literally 2 cops sitting in their car doing nothing. Hold on. 2 cops sitting in their car doing nothing got shot. A call was made for George Floyd for the cops to show up. Massive difference. The cops were called to be there. That Negro wasn't called to show up at the cops' car to shoot them. Come on now.
What do you? That doesn't even matter.
It does matter because the cops were supposed to be there.
No, okay. So the cops were there. They killed George Floyd, right? They were there. They're the ones who did it, which is the problem. And it took 5 days to arrest somebody who we know where they live, and we literally saw them murder somebody on camera. Imagine I murdered somebody on camera, and I was chilling at home, and it took them 5 days to arrest me. If I was kneeling on Derek Chauvin's neck for 9 minutes, they knew who I was and they knew where I lived, I would have been arrested within hours.
That's not true. That is
yes,
not
it
true.
Is.
And you know that's just not true.
It wouldn't have taken 5 days, and you know that's not true. It wouldn't have taken 5 days.
How much you want to bet it would have taken more? Have they caught the shooters for the little girl in the McDonald's parking lot?
Yes.
How long did it take?
They had to find them.
How long
they know
did it
where
take?
Derek Chauvin lives. Oh my God.
How long did they take?
Months.
There you go.
Took months. That's not the same though. They had to find them. They had to get the camera footage. Derek Chauvin,
because that was an obvious state of murder.
If you don't know who somebody is,
that was an obvious case of murder.
If you don't know who somebody is, there's a process when it comes to identifying them. Derek Chauvin has his name on his badge. He has his address in his police records. I don't understand how you even try.
Because it was not an obvious case of murder.
Yes, it was. He literally nailed
to you.
Wait a minute. Take off Derek Chauvin's badge, his police uniform.
You mean take off the reason why he was there? You mean take off the reason why he was there?
No.
Oh, please, man, come on. Now you want to remove the context and the nuance? Now you want to get rid of nuance?
Put me and you in that situation, and somebody filmed me, or no, put you. I'll put you on my neck, right? Let's say you were filmed kneeling on my neck for 9 minutes. Do you think that anybody would question whether? And I died. Do you think anybody would question whether or not that was murder?
Do you think for a minute that you can take away the nuance now that you put the nuance into the case?
It was a public execution, literally, like somebody said. Public execution.
Wow.
There was a public execution. The fact that if you think that there's, even after he's been convicted, that you say that, oh, they weren't sure whether or not it was murder is ridiculous. The amount of energy you guys put into defending killer cops. This is why Black
Who
Lives
is
Matter
defending Chauvin?
You are. You said that he was put there. It wasn't an obvious case of
Where
murder.
in this situation did I? No, stop. Where in this did I say
Anyway.
I didn't blame Chauvin?
I'm sorry if I misspoke. Do you blame Chauvin?
He got arrested for the right reasons.
Do you blame him?
Why would I blame him for being there?
For murdering George Floyd.
He got arrested and he was put to prison for murdering George Floyd.
Do you think that Derek Chauvin murdered
I
George
don't think
Floyd?
he murdered George Floyd. I think he
So you're
contributed to George
defending him,
Floyd's
so-
death.
Wow, ridiculous. So you are defending him then, because you would make the
Why
point.
would I? How am I defending him?
You don't think that
He got jail time for his part in George Floyd's
It
death.
doesn't matter. I'm not asking the courts. I'm asking you. And you think that he didn't murder George Floyd.
No, I don't think he murdered George Floyd.
So you would have to have a defense for why he didn't, which would be defending him.
How is that defending him?
Because you would have a defense.
I'm not
against...
defending the fact that he killed anybody.
Oh, this makes so much sense, right? So it's very obvious that you have a difficult time looking at empirical data.
Oh, do I?
Yes. You would rather put your own nuance into it and believe that as fact.
Like you do with God?
No, I don't put any nuance into God.
You totally put your own nuance on God.
No, there's a lack.
You literally started the whole thing about how other Christians talk and how other Christians do.
Empirical data, right? According
you
to
don't
all
have
facts,
empirical data because you weren't there.
According to all facts, right? This is the reason why, when it comes to it doesn't matter, right?
Was George Floyd on any drug at all?
Doesn't matter. That
that doesn't
relevant.
matter.
His autopsy report shows that he did not die from fentanyl, so that's not even.
Did I even mention fentanyl? Did I mention?
You said, was he on drugs? What? I already know the talking point.
Did I mention fentanyl? You know my talking point.
Stop gaslighting me.
You know my talking point.
What's your talking point?
I'm asking a simple question. Was he high at the time?
Yes, he was high at the time.
Would that have contributed in any way to his behavior?
Sure.
Perfect. So how can you 100% contribute his death to what the officer did?
Was Derek Chauvin high?
No.
So he's the moral agent. What are you talking about? How does that have to do with George Floyd?
But there's no morality. So how do you have a moral agent?
What do you mean?
He's acting based on what was given.
No.
There was
murdered
resistance.
somebody.
No, he didn't.
He murdered
No, he
somebody.
No,
he murdered that man. So take off the badge. Take out George Floyd. Put any other two people in. You mean to tell me that you wouldn't view that as a murder?
Because they weren't there for a reason.
So hold on. So let's get this straight. It doesn't matter why he was there.
Yeah, it does actually.
It doesn't matter the reason why they showed up. He said does. If a cop calls, cops have been called. So you mean to tell me that if a cop calls somebody to come to a situation where somebody's bugging the fuck out because they have mental disorders, which has happened, by the way, what's his name? Daniel Shaver, right, was having essentially a mental breakdown, and the cops came because they were told to be there, and then they murdered him. It doesn't matter how the cops got there. It doesn't matter if it was.
It doesn't
none
matter.
of that matters. No, it matters that they murdered him.
Wow.
That's an insane claim to make. You mean to tell me that if you call the cops to de-escalate a situation that something's happening, and then the cops kill somebody and not de-escalate the situation, that they did the right thing because they were called to be there? Nobody called the cops to murder George Floyd. Nobody called the cops to murder Eric Brown, right? Like, I don't even understand.
I really wish, for the sake of argument, that you get put in that same situation as a cop. I hope to God you become a cop. Just out of the blue, I hope you become a cop.
I would never become a cop.
I wish for you to become a cop.
I would never become a cop.
Why?
And I would never.
Aren't you the better of the people? Aren't you a good person? Why would you not become a cop then to change the system?
Because if I was a good cop, I would be a good cop, and good cops don't.
So then become a cop.
No, good cops don't make it in the police.
How do you? Well, because no good cops apply, like you just did.
So, for example,
if that's what you genuinely believe, why don't you become a cop and encourage all the people that think like you to become cops and replace the ones that are there?
Because it's not going to happen.
Why?
Because I'm not. So you want me to go through this process of becoming a police officer?
Yes.
Right. To then be a good cop.
Yep.
To be ostracized by the police.
No, to become the replacement for all the bad ones.
No, I'm going to be ostracized by the bad ones.
Oh.
That's what's going to happen.
That's what happens.
This is what happens to good cops. This is what happens
to good Christians too. It's weird. It's the same simulation. Yeah, we get ostracized.
No, actually, so contrary to popular belief, I actually believe that faith and religion can be a positive thing.
No. We're not talking about faith and religion. We're talking about Christians. Okay, don't.
It is a religion. I'm not
No,
gonna.
I'm saying you're
I'm
conflating an ideology with people. I am not talking about
mm,
the belief. I'm talking about the people. The
Christianity is a belief.
people get ostracized. The belief doesn't get ostracized. The people do.
Belief is ostracized. It does.
So the belief in police is what's getting ostracized, not the police.
The system of police is getting ostracized.
So then become a police and replace the system itself.
No.
But you're not willing to do that much work because it's too hard.
No, because I don't want to.
Oh, but you want to change the system. How exactly?
I don't need to be a part of the system.
But how do you change the system? What exactly are you looking for to change then? If you can't change it by you're expecting someone else to take your place with your mindset that's willing to do the work to go in
get
and replace the
legislators
cop.
in, people who are part of the system, right? Vote locally, protest, bring awareness to what's happening.
Okay,
right?
after
Like
all that, what exactly are you looking to change? What exactly?
What do you mean? So, oh Jesus Christ, do you think so? Tell me one issue in the history of ever that has been changed because people were quiet about it. Was Martin Luther King?
No,
was
that's
Martin
not my
Luther King
question.
a politician?
That
Martin
is
Luther King
not the
wasn't a
question,
politician.
bro. Yeah, but
Was
you're
Malcolm X
avoiding
a
my
politician?
question. You're
I'm not
avoiding my
avoiding your
question like the plague.
No, because you.
I'm asking you what you want to
seem-
change. What the
you
hell are
seem-
you looking for
what do you
change?
mean?
What
What do I want to
change?
change?
What
I want.
change?
So,
What?
in the case of Black Lives Matter, we want cops to not be able to murder people with impunity.
How exactly? How? How are you going to do that?
What do you mean? How?
How?
We're doing
like
that.
Literally how?
We're doing that.
How? Oh my God, bro. How are you going to stop a cop from killing somebody?
I can't prevent anybody from doing anything ever, but you can allow people to be punished. I didn't say prevent people from killing people. I said stop them from killing people with impunity. That is
And
the
you think
important
that
part.
so because you have an impunity placed on it, you think that's going to stop it?
Absolutely. Well, it'll prevent it more. Oh wait,
Really?
aren't you? Wait,
Really?
wait. Are you pro-life or are you pro-choice?
Ow.
Are you pro-life or are you pro-choice? Are you pro-life?
What does that have to do with the question at hand?
So, do you think that banning abortions will limit the amount of abortions that will happen?
I've never, ever told people I want to ban abortions.
But do you think banning abortions will?
It won't
stop
matter
abortions?
because people will still do it.
Do you think it would lessen the amount of abortions?
No.
You don't think it will lessen the amount of
No.
abortions? You think that there will still be hundreds of thousands of abortions?
Yeah,
a year?
because there'll always be somebody
So
doing
there
it.
will be hundreds of thousands of people having unsafe abortions and dying
Yes.
per year. That is
Mhm.
bullshit, and you know
Oh,
that's
no,
bullshit,
no.
and you're being bad faith right now.
I'm being bad faith.
There's no way.
How
that
many
if a woman
murders
did
happen?
not-
Is murder illegal?
Yes.
How many murders still happen in Chicago alone?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head.
735 last year.
Okay. So do you think that if
Is murder
was
illegal?
legal, do you
Is
think
murder
that if,
illegal?
yes, murder is illegal?
Okay. Does it still
So-
happen?
Yes.
Oh.
This is my argument.
At an exponential
right?
rate?
No.
Yes. Over
No.
cops?
No.
Yes. At an
false.
exponential
No.
rate.
Murder is actually going down, not up.
Oh,
okay?
it is. Wow. But you
Yes.
have empirical data for that, right? I bet.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. I have empirical data for that. Right. So again, my argument is that if you put in laws that cops can't just kill people and just get away with it, then there will be less of that. It's not going to happen.
You,
at the
you
same
really
rate.
believe that?
Absolutely. Because when you hold people accountable for their actions, people think about the consequences. It's kind of like Christianity, like not wanting to go to hell.
You think
kinda
that
what it
stops
reminds me.
Christians from acting out?
I think that I think that it makes more people Christian when they don't want to.
No, it doesn't. It makes people more subservient, but it doesn't make people more Christian at all.
I think it does.
No.
I think it draws more people to Christianity because they say I've literally heard this argument. I've heard people say that I believe in God because I would rather take the chance that if there was
That's
a
not
hell, I don't want to
Christianity.
go there.
That's not Christianity, though.
That's what Christianity allows to happen.
No, that's what people pick as their version of Christianity, but that's not Christianity. It's like
Right.
it's no different. And again, I'll go back to it's just like how I talked about BLM versus what you know about BLM.
Because I have empirical data.
Ah,
Yes. I have
because
empirical
of what you know, right?
data. No, because I have empirical
But
data.
you
It's
know
not about
that.
what I know. It's about
But
what
it's what you know.
data says.
So you don't know
Right.
it?
I do know it,
Okay, then it's what you know.
but it's not what it's not.
I
the
didn't say what
knowledge-
you create. I didn't say what you create. I said what you know.
Sure. It's what
Don't
I
you know it?
Everything that I'm
But you
experiencing
know
is
it.
something
But
that I
you know it. Stop being. You know it. You believe in BLM because you know what you know. Don't give me this bullshit about what the
Be
empirical.
specific.
You know it.
Be specific.
But you know what BLM espouses. Do you not?
Correct.
You know empirical data. Hence, what you believe.
I know the results that they've
So
had.
you
as a
believe
result
what
of-
you believe because you know it.
Correct.
Perfect. People and Christianity believe what they believe because they know it.
No.
People
you
who
believe what
choose
you believe because
Christianity
you
as an
think you
excuse
know it.
don't.
You think you know it. You have a subjective, objective
I'll
belief
tell
of
you what
what
you
you
don't get to do.
believe
You
to be
don't
true.
get to do. You don't get to decide how I believe what I believe. That's not your place.
Show me empirical data that God exists.
You don't get to decide how I believe what I believe. You don't believe it, don't believe it. It's that simple.
Now,
But you don't get to decide how and why I believe something.
so
That's
now that
not
we've
your
gotten to
place.
this point,
You don't
prove to
have that
me.
rule.
So what proof can you show me?
You
that
don't
God
have that
exists?
rule. I don't have to prove anything to you because I
Why
don't
not?
need you to believe it.
Exactly.
The
But you
same way
can't make-
I don't need to believe BLM at all.
That's not the same thing.
Why do I need to believe BLM?
Because I don't believe in BLM.
Why do I need to believe that Black Lives Matter?
I don't believe that Black
Why
Lives
do I
don't
need
believe,
to believe that Black Lives matter?
You don't need to believe anything.
Perfect,
What I'm
and I
saying
don't.
is that right, exactly.
But
I'm
people
just
like
saying
you
that
will
need
look at
to.
me and say, I'm a hatred person, I'm
No,
a bigot, or I'm a
no.
racist. If I were white and I told you Black lives don't
I
matter,
wouldn't
I'd be a racist to you.
Absolutely.
Perfect, and that's your belief, but that's not true.
If you don't believe that Black Lives Matter, you would be racist.
How did that make me racist?
You don't believe that black? Aren't you black?
I didn't say I believe that. I'm told if I said that, you would think I'm racist.
If somebody said that they don't believe that Black Lives Matter, yes, that would make you
Yeah.
racist.
How?
Because you believe that Black lives don't
But
matter.
I'm black. I can't be racist.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about people in general.
But if I say it, am I racist?
What do you mean?
What am I if I say it?
If you say that Black lives don't matter,
What am I then at that point?
Then you would be saying that your own life doesn't matter.
But what am I?
You're black.
Yes, but what would I be by saying Black lives don't matter?
You're black. You would be saying that your own life doesn't matter.
I'm glad you can state the obvious.
Can you be racist to yourself?
To myself? What do you mean?
Can you
I'm saying Black lives don't matter.
So, can I be racist to myself?
That's for you to decide, I guess, since you decide
so
all the rights and wrongs. So I'm asking you, though, what would I be?
Saying that black people and people like you are not racist. What would I mean? What would you be?
What would I be? You call a white person racist, but you won't call me racist. Why?
I would call you racist. I don't hold the belief that nobody can be racist to like only white people. I don't have that belief that only white people.
Oh, so it's not. So you have a different definition of racism than the rest of the world?
No, I have the definition.
Oh, you have the right definition of racism.
Yes, prejudice against somebody's prejudice
so it has nothing to do with power, huh?
I don't believe that. No.
Oh, you might want to check with BLM.
I don't care. I don't share all of their beliefs. Right? I'm not indoctrinated by BLM the way Christians are indoctrinated by Christianity.
We're not indoctrinated by Christianity. We follow.
I get it. See, you don't actually have the ability to distance yourself from whether or not I.
Why would I distance myself from God?
Absolutely, because you believe in God. Absolutely, I don't.
Why would I distance myself from God?
These are not the same because I don't worship BLM. I don't.
Why would I distance myself from God? You're not answering my question.
I'm at this point where I don't care. Right. So I don't worship BLM. I don't believe in BLM. I believe the data and the results.
What if
BLM?
Are you black?
Yes.
What kind of black?
What do you mean? What kind of black?
What kind of black? What mix are you?
I'm Puerto Rican and black.
Puerto Rican is not a race. That's a nationality. What mix are you? Hispanic?
Yes.
Hispanic and black.
Yes.
And what if a truly black person, they have those out there.
Truly black person?
Yeah, well, they call themselves that. I'm just saying based on what they say. Tell you you're not black. What do you tell them?
Tells me I'm not black?
Yeah.
I tell them that they're wrong.
Why are they wrong? But you're not, though.
According to who?
You're mixed.
I don't give credence to that statement.
But you're not black because you're mixed.
Okay.
So why are you fighting for black people?
What do you mean? Why
you don't have a voice in this. You're not black.
Yes, I do because I'm black.
No, you're Hispanic and black, which makes you diluted.
No, it makes me black.
Completely diluted.
No.
Because a true black person that's really for the movement wouldn't be mixed.
False.
I'm pretty sure right now there are lots of BLM people thinking, man.
You see, the thing is, I don't have to engage baseless claims with evidence. If you make a baseless claim, I can refute it with a baseless claim.
I am glad you said that because now, you see, like I said, you keep using the same rhetoric that you are against Christians using.
No, I said I don't have to make
your baseless claims. You have a baseless claim against Christians, and when we tell you it's baseless, all we want empirical evidence. When you tell you we have empirical evidence, it says anecdotal. When you tell it's not anecdotal, it's because it's personal. You see, that doesn't count. That's how you run around the circle. The same way you think Christians do it, it's the same way you do it. You have an answer for everything, an answer for everything that you think you believe.
Because I have data. It's not about whether or not I believe.
I also have data.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
Like what?
The doctor's records.
The doctor's records.
Yeah.
I would like to see those records.
But you're not. First of all, you ain't a doctor, so you don't get to see those records. I can introduce you to the person that it personally happened to. And if they
Oh, this
decide,
is an actual. Oh, I thought you meant like something you read online or
no, no,
something.
no,
You mean
I
to tell
know
me
the
there was a
person.
real life
I know
thing
the
that happened
person.
to? Okay,
It's a friend of mine. Yes.
okay, gotcha. All right.
Yes.
Uh,
Multiple friends
that's
of
a
mine.
coincidence.
Yes.
A coincidence. Okay.
Oh, it's
So,
coincidence.
yes, I often find that people who have these beliefs, these absolute beliefs in things, always have a friend or an experience. So, people who I've never heard anybody who's vaccinated and not against vaccines say that they knew somebody who's died from vaccine, but I always find that anti-vaxxers,
I do.
their mom or
My
their
aunt.
grandmother,
Listen,
somebody died from the
listen.
vaccine. Hmm,
My aunt did.
it's very
Yes.
strange to me.
So you're telling me my aunt didn't die from the vaccine?
No, probably not.
Wow. And you have empirical data to back that up?
Do you?
I do.
Do you have an autopsy report?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
What? You don't believe that either?
Was she allergic or something like that?
No, no allergic, nothing.
No allergies, perfectly
Nope.
healthy,
Perfectly
died
healthy.
from the vaccine.
Yep.
I'm gonna say bullshit on that.
Oh.
I'm gonna say bullshit.
Well, you can believe what you want to believe since you have empirical data to the contrary. I can
don't.
have empirical data.
Mhm.
You don't show me nothing about your empirical data. But when I tell you I have empirical data, it's bullshit.
That's not what empirical means.
amazing.
That's
That
not what empirical means.
is amazing.
That's not what
That's
empirical means.
amazing.
If you had a doctor's record or an autopsy report, sure.
That is incredible.
Sure. I'm just saying that I don't believe you.
Wow. No, bullshit is not believable though, right? Because that's
I'm saying that I don't believe
wow.
you. Right? That's all. I don't
Wow.
because from what I've seen, the empirical data shows that the vaccine does not kill people. So she had to have been allergic. She had to have had a dangerous allergic reaction to that for it to kill her, because there's nothing in the vaccine that's going to just kill people. I've seen the ingredients of the vaccine, right? The vaccines don't kill you unless, again, like is like chicken, like negative.
Please, Melody, can you tell him that she had an allergic reaction? Because he will only believe it if she had an allergic reaction. Just understand that anyone that's died from the vaccine, anybody watching this, if you have a person in your family that has died from the vaccine, it's because they were allergic and nothing else. Because that's empirical data that he has researched and seen that you cannot die from any vaccine unless it's an allergic reaction.
COVID vaccine, to be specific.
Just want you to know that's what he believes. You could see everything else to the contrary, but understand that it's an allergic reaction.
How come I just don't seem to have people who come to me and say, hey, I was vaccinated, I was supporting the vaccine, and then like my aunt got it, and she died, and now I really need to speak about this. There's always people who are already anti-vax.
That's not
who
true.
Then
either.
Tell me, yes, it is every single person.
That's not true either.
And I'm pretty sure I've interacted with more anti-vaxxers than you have. Okay.
Wow, and that's empirical. Hold on, that's empirical.
I said I'm pretty sure that I have.
Then don't say a statement like that because you don't know.
Okay, sure.
Deal with the empirical since you love empirical data.
Absolutely, I'm pretty sure.
You are not pretty sure.
I am pretty sure.
You think you have, but you don't know, and it can't be pretty sure.
Because
pretty sure would be on the opposite side.
You are an anti-vaxxer, right?
So what the hell does that mean? That means I interact with anti-vaxxers and vaxxers alike.
Which
you want to put me in a bracket because I'm not vaxxed?
No, I'm saying that you're an anti-vaxxer. That's if you want.
What does that have to do with anything? I'm also I'm not atheist. That don't mean I ignore atheists.
I'm not saying that. Right, I'm saying that I've probably interacted with more of them because I actively seek out anti-vaxxers to talk to.
And I don't.
You actively seek out anti-vaxxers to talk to? To what?
I actively seek out vaxxed people to talk to.
Right. You seek out vax people to talk to just the way I not being an anti-vaxxer, seek out anti-vax people to talk to.
Yes, the exact same way because I have to do my research. I'm pretty sure that
I have talked to more anti-vax people than you have.
How can you, as a vax person, I'm sure you are, because you probably triple and quadrupled for all I know, talk to more anti-vaxxers than I do?
Because I actively
give me a ballpark number of how many anti-vaxxers you've talked to.
Let's be specific about talking to people about these things.
Go ahead. How many?
A ballpark number?
Yeah.
I don't know. Dozens?
For me, talk to at least 2,000.
2,000. And you can confidently make that.
Yes, I can confidently make that.
Because your circle is probably anti-vaxxers.
Yes.
And has every single one of those people had somebody die from the vaccine?
About a fourth of them have.
A fourth of them. Okay.
Yeah.
So a fourth would be 25% of the anti-vaxxers you've interacted with. Right?
Yes.
For me,
that'd be 500 people, by the way.
I would say about 85% of the anti-vaxxers I've interacted with have had somebody die. Because I'm not also interacting with anti-vaxxers who I share beliefs.
But we're not talking about anti-vaxxers.
And
we're talking about people that took the vaccine.
And I can say that 100% of the people, right? Of people who them or people who they know have taken the vaccine.
Right.
85% of the anti-vaxxers I've talked to have either known somebody close to them who have died. Right. And 100% of the people who I know who have been vaccinated have had no such claim. 100%. So
And
there's
how many people are
85%
those?
to the
How many people
contrary.
are those?
What do you mean?
How many people have you spoken to that are vaxxed?
Hundreds.
How many?
I don't know the exact. You're asking me for an arbitrary number that I can't give you.
The same way you asked me for an exact number. It's no different.
Hundreds. I didn't get. No, you asked me for an exact number. I said
No,
dozens.
you asked
said
me how many
thousands.
did I talk to.
You
You asked me how many unvaxxed people I've talked to.
Right. So, okay. So I said that I'm pretty sure I've talked to more than you.
And
right.
I showed you that I have talked to more.
Right. So 25% of the people who you've talked to who are anti-vaxxers have supposedly had somebody who have died from the vaccine.
Right.
And about 85 or 90% of the people who I've talked to who are anti-vaxxers have said that they've had somebody die from the vaccine. But 100% of the people who I know who have been vaccinated or know people who have been vaccinated, which is a lot, usually know more people than you are or your friends know more people, no adverse effects whatsoever.
Okay,
how come
so
none of us are seeing this?
How many Christians have you talked to that gave you an adverse reaction to God?
I don't even see how this is relevant.
I'll tell you why. I will tell you why. Because if you believe in it, you're not going to find the adverse reaction. You're not going to talk about them. People aren't going to talk about the bad side of God because they believe in God. They want you to believe like they do.
You're talking about like Christians who
the whole confirmation bias thing.
I've seen plenty of that. I've seen plenty of Christians who are questioning their faith, who see the
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying there will be plenty of Christians who will not deny God, right?
Sure.
Like you'll give them all the examples of him killing. Take me for instance, right? No, take me for instance. He did all this, and I say, and
okay,
there are tons of Christians that do that, right? You put it past vax people to do the same thing?
This has nothing to do with science.
Do you put it past vax people to do the same?
To say whether or not somebody's died or not?
Vax, regardless of whatever happens.
No.
Oh, so because they're just so holy, they will tell you the truth 100% of the time.
Holy? No, I think that people who I interact with tend to look at things that are true, things that are observable, things that
they'll be honest with you, is what you're saying. You believe them to be honest with you 100% of the time.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's a great crowd to be a part of, especially over in the hundreds. That's amazing.
I think so.
But Christians are not, though, because we live in bad faith and
empirical
data.
No, I think that you truly believe what you believe. I just think that.
I truly believe that vaxxers believe what they believe, and even though it's false, they believe.
I don't believe anything. It's not about belief. It's not about faith. I can tell you
right now that you have denied.
I don't have faith in science.
I am telling you right now. You told me that it would be bullshit to tell you that my aunt died from the vaccine because it's side effects.
I think that would be bullshit. Yes.
But you're not a doctor.
No, I'm not. I don't need to be.
Oh, you don't need to. Oh.
Yes, because of all evidence that I've seen, all the science.
Did you see my aunt's evidence? Did you see my aunt's evidence?
No, of course not.
Okay, so you didn't observe that? Then you can't make a judgment on it, can you?
I'm not making. Well, I can make a guess, right?
I'm not saying you made a bullshit guess.
I said I think it's bullshit. That's what I said.
You said I call bullshit.
Yes, I'm going to call out people when I think that they're lying. Absolutely.
That's very definite.
I'm going to call out people when I think they're lying. I'm not just going to let you.
So you think I'm lying?
Yes.
That's your first go-to. That is your first go-to. Is that I'm lying?
Yes, because I've observed. I think you're lying or misinformed because I've observed you being so in the past.
When have I lied?
BLM, Derek Chauvin. He was murdered. You don't believe that he was murdered despite
the fact
that you watched him be. You observed the man.
That is not a lie.
Yes,
that is not a lie.
I said you're either lying or misinformed.
How am I misinformed?
Okay, I'll tell you how you're misinformed. You observed a man get murdered on camera. The man was convicted of murder, but you still don't believe he was murdered.
Right.
Despite all
That's
evidence
a belief. That's not misinformed. I know exactly all the details of the case. I still don't believe it.
That is false. You are denying the facts of reality.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
I believe he got arrested. I believe he went to jail. I believe that he got arrested for the murder of George Floyd. I don't believe from what I saw that he murdered George Floyd. I have the right to believe that. That is not lying or misinformation because I tell everybody the bits of information. I can show you the film. If at the end of the film you believe he murdered George Floyd, you believe he murdered George Floyd. I don't have to believe he murdered George Floyd. It was
objectively murder. Of course you don't have to believe it because you
Perfect. Then it's not lying or misinformation. It's my belief system.
You believe it to be true.
Yes.
Despite the evidence that it's
not. The evidence you think is murder.
So if I say the sky is yellow, is the sky yellow because I believe it to be so?
It depends on what you're looking at.
False.
Was the sky ever yellow? Was the sky ever yellow at any point in time?
No.
So how are you going to make that equivalency? You can't.
But if I believe it is, then I believe it is, and it must be true.
No, because there's a big, massive difference between that and watching somebody put their knee in the neck and attributing all of that to murder.
Absolutely. I don't know how you can see that and cannot be murder. I don't understand this. I don't understand how anybody could watch that. Oh no, I do understand because people have their own confirmation bias. I know for a fact that if you took off
Bro,
Derek
it's no
Chauvin's
different than
copy
your view of
uniform,
God, okay?
if you
It's
took
no
off
different
Derek
than your
Chauvin's
view of
copy
God.
uniform and it wasn't George Floyd who was a criminal,
It is no
this would be a
different than
very
your view
different
of God.
situation.
It is no different than your
It's
view of God.
very different.
How?
It's very different.
You have your
Because
confirmation bias that God doesn't exist.
no, I don't. I don't have a lack of evidence that God exists. There's
No,
a
you
major
had
difference.
evidence. You didn't like the evidence.
No, I never had
because you
evidence that
wanted to
God
do what you
exists.
wanted to do.
I never had evidence that God
You
exists.
want to live the life you want
God
to live,
has never.
so you don't have
God
to
has
follow
never.
the kinds of rules.
God has never shown me what
You don't want the rules. You don't want
There's
the rules.
rules?
You
What
said so.
rules?
You said so. You can't have sex before marriage. Remember you said all that?
I did not follow God because I
You
want to
said
have
you
sex before
don't want. You
marriage.
said you don't want to live for a God that has those kinds of rules put down.
That's not the only reason why.
But you said so.
No, I said that I think restricting myself because of the rules of God, a God who has never
Then you
shown
don't
me
want to
evidence of
follow
himself
God because of that.
is no, I don't want to follow God because he's never proven himself to me. God has never proven that he exists.
I can believe that 100% that you never witnessed God.
Absolutely.
I
And I don't
can,
think anybody has. I don't
based
think
on how I
anybody in
know
the world
what I
has
know
ever
now,
witnessed God.
I can 100% believe that you've never encountered
I don't
God.
think anybody's encountered God ever.
Okay.
Because
Mr. Empirical Data, you have empirical data to back that up?
what do you mean?
Do you have empirical
I'm not
data
making
to
a
back
negative.
up the fact
I'm not making
that
a negative
people have
claim.
never encountered God?
I'm saying that I believe.
Okay. Do you have empirical
believe.
data to prove that people have encountered God?
There is no empirical data to show that people have encountered God.
Oh,
It's all anecdotal. There's no empirical data to prove God. And if there was, you'd be able to show me.
I
This
can.
debate would be over. You
I
can't
can,
because
though.
it doesn't exist.
why doesn't it exist?
Show it to me.
The mere fact that you are sitting there is proof, but you don't want that proof because the proof that if you would believe it, you would have to change a whole lot of things.
No, me existing is not proving the existence of
You
God.
still haven't proved to me where morality came from. You just said it just came. It just
It
happened to
comes
be.
from
You still haven't
reciprocity.
told me how everything developed from a
Instinct.
single cell organism and managed to split into these multiple of animal and
There's
human,
explanations
and
for that.
human was the only one that managed to get higher consciousness. You have yet to tell me how any of that took place with two things banging together. You can't prove that to me. You just take it
Science
on
can.
faith. You take it on. They can't do that at all. They have never proven why and how it happened. Not
Absolutely.
once. Because everything they base it on is randomized. Evolution cannot happen without randomized mutation. That's what they say.
Okay. What's wrong with that?
Because you cannot randomize consciousness.
Yes, you can.
No.
Yes.
Okay, then create it. Go ahead. I want you to randomize consciousness for me right now.
How?
Go ahead.
How
Come man has not been able to do it?
Again. Has not been able to do what?
Randomize consciousness.
You mean create consciousness?
Yeah. How? Because remember, in our last discussion on TikTok, you said once it's happened, then we can go forward, right? It's happened. Why can't you move forward and tell me why consciousness is?
Women give birth to other people. That person is a
No,
random set of DNA.
that. You don't do that.
I don't need to. I'm a man.
But you don't
But I
do that.
participate in that.
Humans don't do that.
Yes,
you
we
can't
do.
replicate
We do it every day.
You cannot replicate
Yes,
it.
we do. Women
How?
create people all the
You
time.
don't do that.
Of which their DNA structure will be random. Yes, women and men.
Their DNA
half
structure
my
is
DNA,
not random. Their
half the
DNA
woman's
structure
DNA.
is not random.
Yes, it is. It's your
How is it
DNA and the
random?
woman's DNA.
No, that's not random.
It's
You
yes,
obviously don't
your
know what the
DNA
word random is.
Hold on. So your DNA and the woman's
break it
DNA
down
makes
for
a
you.
completely new
No. That's
system
not random.
of
That is
DNA,
not random. That's not random.
which makes a new person.
Hold
which is
on.
random.
Hold on. It's not random, and I'll tell you why.
Why does randomness even matter?
Because it's part of your belief system of it not being a god, and it has to occur somehow, over time, consistently, but still random.
Randomness,
It can't be
as
random.
in well, chaos,
It can't
like
be
things
random.
happening. Why can't it be random?
It cannot be random.
Why?
Because if you're going to have the way genes work and the way DNA works,
Sure.
when it lines up, there are built-in codes into each DNA strand.
Yep.
If it randomizes, what you're telling me happens is that the DNA code itself is restructured. You can't have a restructured DNA code.
You have a combination of
You
the mother's
can't.
and father's DNA.
And that is set. For random mutations to happen, those two have to somehow blend and create something completely antithetical to the first two. One is either stronger or weaker than the other. They don't transform, which is what random mutations happen, and that's when you get anomalies. Evolution didn't do that. And when it did, it got rid of it.
You mean like albinos or something?
Not albinos. We're talking about randomly awkward. It literally will kick it out. It kicks it out. If the DNA strands come together and it decides to just change one thing random mutation wise, it doesn't come together.
Wait a minute. How are you? Where are you making this claim that evolution is random? No, that evolution is random. Where are you getting this from?
What do you mean? Where am I getting its
Where are
science?
you
Well,
getting
you
it from?
like science. This is science.
No, it's not. This is a myth.
Mutations are essential to evolution.
Yes, mutations are not random.
It is very random.
No, they're not.
Very random.
No. I'm literally looking at this. Yes, I'm looking at this right now. It's literally saying that this is a myth. Evolution is random. This is not true.
Oh my gosh.
Are you going to deny the science? Like
I'm looking at the science right now.
Right. It says this, right? So
the anomaly would be removed if it created a variance, right?
No, right here. Evolution is not a random process. The genetic variation on which natural selection acts may occur randomly, but natural selection itself is not random at all. The survival and reproductive success of an individual is directly related to the ways its inherited traits function in the context of its local environment.
I will test that theory for you. How did a dog and a human come from the same location?
What do you mean?
It all came from one, right?
No, the dogs.
No?
Are you making the claim that dogs evolved into humans?
I'm asking how did all these branch out from one?
Oh, so again, like it says here, right? What's the exact sentence? Right? So
with no traces of any at the end of it.
Right. So the genetic variation on which natural selection acts may occur randomly, right? But natural selection itself is not random at all. The survival and reproductive success of an individual is directly related to the ways its inherited traits function in the contents of its local environment, right? So again, we didn't
That's
come
adaptation.
From,
that's
right.
not mutation.
So again, so when they say in the beginning that like we came from like single-celled organisms, they didn't mean that there was one single organism. There were multiple single-celled organisms. Who's making the claim that we came from one single-celled organism?
Oh my God, bro. You might wanna brush up on what your people actually say the whole thing started from.
I think you should brush up on
you might want to go back and check that. You might wanna. You might wanna. Because what you're trying to tell me is that when it exploded, and everything that could possibly came from multiple. You don't know how many. It just happened to blow up into multiple, and all these single cells branched out into what we call animals, people, bugs, right? That just happened. Plants, all of it, right? And you're expecting me to believe that on occasion one of them bloomed and split into two different animal groups like birds and reptiles, right? That's how it happened.
That's how osmosis happens.
Wow. Osmosis?
Split. Yeah.
I don't think that's osmosis, buddy. I'm just letting you know that's not what osmosis is, but okay. Again, the science that you think you know, I don't think you know. I don't think you know what osmosis really is.
Sorry, I used the wrong word.
No, I think you used the right word because that's the word you know.
Mitosis. That's the one. Mitosis. That's what I meant to say. So we agree, mitosis, right? The splitting of cells. Right? That's what I mean. So am I still incorrect or not?
Yeah, totally.
Right, mitosis. So
no, you're totally wrong. But ain't nobody going to convince you because you want to hold on to that thing for dear life. I mean, yeah, like I said, no different than a Christian. You're just a different type of Christian now. You're just a Christian in science. You're a science Christian.
No, I'm not a Scientologist.
You're a social Christian.
Scientology is religion.
No, I didn't say Scientology. I said you're a science Christian.
I'm not even close. I'm somebody who looks at data that can be proven and observable.
That's science.
And then I make decisions based on that.
That's science.
That's not religion. Religion is based on faith.
I didn't say religion. I said you're a science Christian.
Christianity is based on faith. There's no. Yes,
because
it is.
You're taking the Big Bang on faith.
Why? Because I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Nobody was there.
Exactly.
Right?
So you're
but
taking
we
it
have
on
observed. But we have observable.
Recreate
evidence.
the Big Bang for me.
We have physics. Right? We have physics.
Recreate the Big Bang for me.
Why are you asking me to recreate the Big Bang for you?
Because you believe in it.
It doesn't matter.
God recreates his life-giving force all the time. I'm waiting for you to see, because we, like I said, children. So, I mean, I want to see you recreate the stuff that you say came out of nothing.
You're making ridiculous claims.
Did it come out of nothing, by the way? That was another question. Did all of this happen out of nothing?
What do you mean?
The Big Bang. Did it come out of nothing?
Did it come out of nothing? No, obviously there was something.
So what was there before?
Who knows? What was there before God?
God was there. You see, the difference is I don't claim that there was nothing.
Yes,
I claim that God was and always will be.
How?
You believe the same thing.
How?
You just call it matter.
Explain it though.
I don't need to explain God the same way you cannot explain.
Recreate God.
Hold on.
You asked
Hold
me to
on.
recreate the Big Bang.
No. Because
Yeah.
I don't need to recreate God because God was not created at all. You understand? You live on the same level of faith as I do. You just don't want to call it faith. You want to say
No.
that it's
So
science.
prove to me where God was. Well, tell me where God was before.
You tell me where things were before the Big Bang.
You can't do this. You can't do it
And
either.
you can't do it either. But I still believe what I believe. You don't want to call it faith. You work on faith.
No, I work on data.
You're working on faith because
No.
you can't tell me what was there before the Big Bang.
Tell me scientifically how
What
God
was there
existed.
before the Big Bang?
Tell me scientifically
What was
God
there? Because you
existed.
can't scientifically tell me because what was there before the Big Bang.
Because
What
we
was
have
there before the Big
evidence.
Bang?
We have evidence.
What was
that
there?
points- What was there before God? I can ask you the
What
same
was there?
question.
But you're not okay. But you said you have evidence. Obviously, you told me I have none. Perfect. You have evidence. What was there before the Big Bang?
Nobody knows what was there before the Big Bang.
But you know it happened.
Scientists have an idea of how it happened. Yes.
What was the idea? What they think happened?
So based on evidence that we have now, for example, that the universe is expanding, that the first atom was hydrogen, how there was heat and energy, and how that expanded into the universe that we have now. Primarily, when we look at how the universe is formulated out as a grid, we see that that grid is constantly expanding. For there to be expansion, there needs to be force that is propelling the universe in the same direction that it's been going in for billions of years. And if it's been going in the direction of billions of years because of a force, it had to have come back.
What
from a
created the
particular
hydrogen? What created hydrogen?
I don't have an answer for you for that.
But you
Again,
did.
I said
You
at the
did
very
manage.
beginning
You
of this
did
that I'm not
manage
a
to come up.
scientist.
But they did
right?
come up. They did manage to come up with E equals MC squared, though, right?
Theory of relativity, yes.
Yeah. So that managed to come about, knowing that you don't know how it came about. That's not faith.
That's physics.
But that's not faith because you don't know. This has no basis. It's just because man said so.
No, literally, time was observable through how something like literally Einstein got this idea of E equals MC squared
Idea.
by observing something moving fast and something moving slow. This is
Right. But he didn't.
observable.
That doesn't tell me how something came to be.
I literally just told you how the theory of relativity came to be.
No.
by
I'm talking
observation.
about hydrogen. How did that come to be?
I don't have the answer for you for that. Again, I said at the beginning of the stream.
But
I'm
you
not a
know it
scientist.
came to be.
Because I've read about it. Yes.
But you know it came to be.
Because I've read about it.
But that's not faith.
I can't give you the exact data and
But it's
information
faith.
of
I'm
what.
saying that's on faith,
No,
though.
it's not
You're
faith.
taking it on
It's
faith.
science. I'm telling you that I can't say off the top
Oh.
of my head how it happened. I don't remember how it happened. I'm telling
You
you,
don't
that
know how
explain it
how hydrogen happened,
off the top of my head. No.
but there's data that
There's
says
an
how
explanation.
hydrogen showed up.
Yes.
I didn't know so they could tell you what the original matter was, and how that original matter occurred.
Matter and antimatter. It just so happened that matter was winning over antimatter. That's how it happened.
Oh, kind of like God and the devil. Huh? That you want to call it science.
Matter and antimatter is a science. Oh, right. I
Weird.
didn't think of that.
Weird.
That's crazy.
That's
right?
crazy.
Two forces fighting against each other, but one just happened one over the other.
I tell you, you want to call it science, feel free. You want to call it natural idea of morality, feel free. But the same way you think I can't prove God to you, the same way it's and the excuses that you think Christians make, all of you on the left and some on the right make the exact same excuses for the social issues we have, for the life you live, all of you, because you gave me the exact same logic when I asked you about BLM. You gave me all of the talking points just on your side of why you believe what you believe, how you believe what you believe, how I'm making no sense, and what I have can't contradict what you know. The exact same thing Christians say. But when a Christian does it, they have no empirical data for it. And when you give you empirical data, it's bullshit or it's subjective and it makes no sense. I'm amazed that you can have that viewpoint about Christianity and be okay with it. But if Christians think the opposite and think about that way about you, we are the bullshit artists.
Because Christians have no evidence. You can keep asking me about the Big Bang, which is something.
Oh, no, I'm not going to keep asking about the Big Bang because I know you have no answer for the Big Bang.
No, because there's plenty of evidence of modern science that you don't want to ask me about because you know there's answers.
No, go ahead and we have talked about the modern. We have talked about the modern science.
How about you give me current observable? If we can go back to the origins, nobody knows the origins of anything, right? Mm-hmm. So nobody can make that argument. What about now? Why did God stop performing miracles?
No, right? He didn't stop. And like I told you, I would give you an example, but you need to see science. Remember, you told me. Okay. Stop. Right there. I literally told you I have examples of a miracle. You told me no, it's an anomaly.
Right.
That was your answer. It's an anomaly. It's bullshit.
So give me.
How is that? How am I ever going to prove anything to you when what you call my evidence is BS? I'm not going to try and prove nothing to you because when I give you empirical.
I can't
What?
trust you as a source. I can't
It
trust
is
you
not
as a
me
source.
as a source. I literally have somebody that did that exact same thing, that went through it. You don't want that. You are not, okay. George Floyd, you are not George Floyd. You are not even Chauvin. You're not the source. I can't believe you.
It's on video.
Ah, I can literally show you, but you know what you told me? It's BS, and it probably didn't happen.
No, I'm not talking about the cancer thing. I'm talking
No, we're
about
talking, yes, we are talking about the cancer, and we're going to talk about the cancer thing because it is a miracle. But you don't want to call it a miracle because you don't have empirical.
If you could show me that.
Okay, Thomas. Okay, Thomas.
I
Okay,
can
Thomas.
I can literally show you a video right now.
And I can show you doctor records of it being gone in a heartbeat. But you know what you don't want is that evidence. Because even if I do show you,
want that
even
evidence.
if I do show you that
I do
evidence,
want
you're
that
gonna,
evidence.
I can bet you money I know what you're gonna tell me.
What?
Oh, that was
there's
an
a scientific
anomaly.
explanation?
Yeah, there's a scientific explanation.
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. So
Maybe.
why would I show you?
Because I would like to see it for myself to determine whether or not how valid it is. And I don't look
But
at
you're not
data.
a doctor. How would you know how valid it is?
I mean, I wouldn't know. I would need a doctor to tell me and explain to me.
And so if I, wow.
Wait, so what if I knew a doctor and I showed them the evidence you gave me, and then they said this is bullshit, or if they validated it?
Then they would have to.
If they validated it.
That's science, though. That's what
said
science does, right?
This is a miracle of science.
Isn't that
right?
what science does?
Well,
That's what you'd call it, a miracle of science.
If the doctor told you, I didn't make a claim. I didn't make a claim. Why are you laughing? I didn't make a claim.
Because it's a miracle of science. Science has miracles, but not
God. Why are you
God.
saying
That's
that I made
amazing.
a claim? I said if
That's
the doctor
amazing.
said that it's a miracle of science. That's what I said. I was literally
Hey,
talking about
doctor said, if doctor said that it must be true.
What
If
happened?
doctor said it must be true.
Is that what you believe?
No, but you, because they said it's a miracle of science.
I said, if in the case that you showed me this and the doctor told me that it wasn't true, or if
and it was a
did
miracle of
happen,
science?
or whether or not it did happen or didn't happen, it did happen, it was a miracle of science. And as soon as I said it, you just started laughing. I didn't even get the
because
finish
because you said miracle of science. You can't have that.
So what it would be?
There is no such thing as a miracle of science. Either science is empirical or it's not. It can't be a miracle.
So you think that when people make phenomenal recoveries, that's not a miracle of science?
Of course,
because it's
no,
outside
it's not
the
science.
norm.
I say it's not science. It's not
Think
science.
it's God?
It's
So you think
definitely
it's God
not science.
when,
Yeah.
No. I think that people's bodies can respond to things in particular ways.
Oh.
Not everybody's is the same, right? Not everybody works.
But you
the same.
can't tell
Not
how
everybody
because science
recovers
can't
the
prove it out.
Well, yeah, you have people who get sick from the same thing, and like their bodies don't react the same. You got some people who get sick who get over it very quickly, and some people who don't get over it very quickly, right? And you have people, and this can be expanded to a lot of things. You have people who get very, very chronic diseases, and you have people who beat it, and you have people who don't. And we call the ones who beat it miracles of science.
Everybody.
Right? But we're not using the term miracle the way Christians use the word miracle. We're
Obviously
using the word,
not.
yeah, we're using it. We're using it in its deductive, dictative way, right? Not in the way that like, oh, God did it, right?
Just unexplainable. It just happened.
Unexplainable.
Yeah, because it's a miracle of science. You can't really tell me how. It just it happened.
Sometimes we say things is a miracle when we can't explain how things happen. Yeah, sure. It's just because we can't explain it currently doesn't mean that we don't have an explanation. Which is, I believe, why if I went back in time and showed somebody like my phone, they would think that it was a miracle because they couldn't explain it. But like, as we learn more, we stop believing in miracles and we start believing.
Time travel would be a miracle. That would be the miracle.
I know time travel.
Not the showing the phone, but definitely time travel would be a miracle.
I know time travel doesn't exist in my lifetime because if it did, I would have already come back in time and had a chat with myself at some point. So, yeah. But I don't know.
Anyway, but I did like this discussion. Like I said, the purpose of this wasn't to persuade anybody. I want to understand that.
Yeah, I think we got a little heated, which I think every debate needs every now and then.
But it needs it.
I'm fine with that.
Now, mind you, 7 months ago, I would have found a way to metastasize and grow into something big enough to reach where he was and strangle the shit out of him. I probably would have gotten to that point 7 months ago, but I'm not there anymore. I have evolved and adapted to my environment, and I have become more conscious about things. So in some ways, I've borne out his case. Not really. That was my anomaly case study for him. But I did appreciate the conversation. Nothing is ever going to sway me from my viewpoint about God, ever, at all, at no point, no time. And if I don't speak about my God before man, I cannot expect him to espouse me. Did he just leave? He just took off? Okay. Not even a goodbye. That was a little sad. I thought he would at least say bye. But here's one thing you can see, okay? I want people to understand this clearly. When atheists tell you that there is no God, but they can't tell you why there is no God. He's back. Did you just leave for no reason?
I accidentally
This Negro
clicked
just
out.
decided,
My apologies.
screw you, bro. I'm out.
My apologies.
He just
My
dipped.
apologies.
Like I was like, this brother didn't even say goodbye. Like,
I was like,
damn.
damn
Like
it.
I thought it was a cordial
No
discussion.
No,
But
you're good. You're good. My apologies.
this man just dipped on me. Like, dang.
Very sorry about that.
No,
I'm
but
sorry. Please continue what you were
no,
saying.
no,
Or feel free to cover anything I missed.
no. I was just telling people, when you hear an atheist or someone who's not a Christian say that there is no God, it's because in their mind there really is no God. You can't persuade them otherwise, because they have not encountered him. And when you can't encounter him, then the only other option is there is no God, and you have to resort to the science to bear out what you then can now believe, which is empirical. We see data. And once you experience that data, nothing can then be attributed to any God, because you can see without him, because I don't believe him, this is what I see. But I do want to thank you for being on the show today, and do thank you for at least giving the discussion and the debate. I wish you had invited people to join. I put the ad out. You have 300,000 people. We could have had a really good audience. I was kind of hoping when I tagged you in it that you would at least put it on your page and say, hey, look, I'm going to school this non-BLM black guy. Come watch. You didn't even do that. I mean, you couldn't even give it some hype. I even took time to make a nice, fancy ad. I mean, you saw it, right?
Yes, I did.
I
Yes.
took time, man. I took effort to make that, thinking this brother's gonna share it, and he didn't even do that.
A lot of people say that I do this stuff like this for clout, which is I don't, obviously, because if I did, I would have invited my entire following base to do it. I do very much enjoy these discussions, more so than anything else. But in my defense, though, I did have a very busy weekend. And when I say busy, I mean like there's a lot of other things happening in my life right now. And I did try to like focus up on the debate and like look into things that I wanted to cover. But I was kind of getting a lot of stuff thrown at me in the interim. And I really did want to like do more promotion and like put it on Twitch and everything like that, but I just didn't have the time. There's just been too much happening. So
No problem. It is what it is.
Maybe next time if we have a discussion, if I
yes, I would love to have a.
I'll try to do setup days before, which is what I usually like to do, but I really did not get the chance.
Well, like I said, when you have time, you let me know, because I have nothing but time.
Absolutely. And do you stream this from YouTube and Twitch, right? And
it's Facebook on 2 channels, YouTube, Twitch on 2 channels, Rumble, and Instagram.
Okay. And what time do you have a normal time to usually do these debates? Because I'd like to come in and see other people that you just discuss with.
My own channel, I don't normally do the debate thing, unless I encounter somebody from like TikTok and they want to debate, and I don't do TikTok debates because it's, like I said, it's nonsense.
Right. Okay.
There are too many people that will show up and disagree with us both, or send the report in, and then your live gets shut down right in the middle of a good discussion, and I hate that nonsense. But here, I control things, and so they don't do that here. But I set it up as needed. But I have a show that normally goes on at 5 o'clock every day, 5 o'clock Eastern. I mean 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 Eastern.
Okay.
So and that's on a channel called Too Strong. And and so we do more of a different platform over there. But for me, I do a lot of philosophical discussions, topics. I don't normally tackle a lot of the political things anymore. I've gone a lot more heady with my topics, and which is why someone like you is a good thing, because I've been having a hard time finding people that will be able to challenge me intellectually. Okay. And you notice about TikTok that TikTok is
full of idiots,
not for the brightest of folks. No offense to some of my friends. I'm just talking about, we know that TikTok is laden with a lot of slow folk. You have to admit, I don't care if you're a big crit, you have to admit TikTok is laden with a lot of non-hamster wheel having hamsters. So, so that's what that's the easiest way I can put it. You have the hamster, no wheel. It just sits there and eats. That's all it does. Yeah. So thank you. thank you for being here. You can dip. I have a couple of things I want to go over with my crowd here
Absolutely.
about tonight's
Sure.
show, and but I really do appreciate you being here today.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me on. I appreciate the discussion. Again, the whole heated stuff doesn't really bother me
No, it's
much.
like I said,
It's
that's
gonna
debate.
happen.
That's debate. That's
But I
not
do
a.
appreciate the cordial discussion that we had. Again, nobody's here to change each other's minds. I
No,
guess we're just here to discuss
at least not at the
ideas.
moment. I mean,
Not
I
at the
may
moment.
go back.
No.
I may go back
No.
and think about stuff and be like, yeah, and you might go back and think, nah. But you know, at least it'll be. It might be latent. You never know. Never know
Right.
what might be.
Right.
What might have been planted. So
But yeah, thank you for having me on. And maybe we'll have another discussion in the
yeah,
future.
I would like to have a part two for sure, or three. Now it'll be part three. Yeah.
Okay. Take care.
All right.
Have a good
Later.
one. Thank you.
So anyway, guys, it was good for me. It was a good discussion. But like I said, the same answers that they give you for telling you that you can't believe in God is the same things he gave when I asked him about BLM. Correct? You don't know what you're talking about. You don't have the evidence I have, or if you did have the evidence I have, you didn't read it right, or you didn't do enough research, or um, it's all your belief. It's confirmation bias and blah blah. Which is why you can't base your belief in God on how other people perceive your walk. You can't do it. Because if you do that, you're going to be second guessing that thing all day long. You ain't going to have a leg to stand on. You ain't going to want to talk to God because you're listening to people tell you what you already know. You know that verse that said, "Don't doubt in the light what don't doubt in the dark what God has told you in the light." Don't doubt in the dark what God told you in the light. You know God. If you know Him, you don't need to listen to somebody tell you that you don't know Him, or that what you know ain't making sense, or what that you know don't line up with this fact here and this fact here. I know for a fact that I have witnessed miracles. I know for a fact that I have witnessed demons. I know for a fact that I've heard Him audibly talk to me. I know this. I don't need someone else to verify it for me. You don't need people to verify God for you. God verifies God. He's not a personage that is waiting to be proven out by people for him to be true. God is, and everyone else a liar. Let God be true, and everyone else a liar. If you don't believe that, I don't know how you can be a genuine Christian. If you don't believe what the man tells you, how are you ever going to actually follow the man? You can't. You can't do it. You cannot say you're following God, and then when he tells you something, did you really? You're being Adam again. Did you really say that? You know, he's Thomas, is what he really is. I need to see. Give me the hands. Let me see. He believes. I have a suspicion that Blackbird has a source of. There is something twanging in the back of his head that something ain't right. Um, but it was a great discussion. But I will not be shaken in my belief system just because of the disbelief of a few. And that Amy gal, because I'm preaching down to people, I won't miss you. There's nothing about your support that was genuine to begin with. So I won't miss anything that you had to offer. Not your input, not your thought process, not your donations, nothing. What the truth has a tendency to do is weed out all of the. No, it just has a tendency to weed it all out. All of the chaff. That's the good one, the chaff. I'm not here to convince anybody of my faith. I'm here to convince people that God exists, but only because you need to. But if you don't, that's on your problem. That's not mine. I don't have to answer to God. You do. I don't have to answer to God for you. I have to answer to God for me. I have to live my life for God, and my answers to Him are about my life. It was a great discussion. I really did, because here's the thing: discussions like this, it helps solidify for me that I know what I know. The instant I can run into a situation like this and start to second guess, that's when I know something's off. And it's either because I've encountered something that I have not fully thought through, or it'll show me a weak spot. I encourage all of you to really, 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 really pin down your faith. Like, take a journey into some sort of a opposite viewpoint, and test what you believe against that opposite viewpoint. Work out your faith. Work it to failure, like I was telling him. Work out to failure. When you get to that point where you can't defend what you think you should defend anymore, see why. It's the only way you're going to really know your faith, really, is by walking it out, pushing it, testing other people, making sure what you believe you genuinely believe. Because if at the end of the day you get tested about it and you don't have an answer, it tells me you weren't really living it out. You were content to just sit there and get it fed to you. You can't have it just fed to you. You need to have it constantly going through you. Always be ready to give an answer. That's what it means. That's exactly what it means. Always be ready to give that answer. If you can't give the answer, I don't know what the point is of following God if you can't say why if you follow him. Even if the answer is because he is who he says he is, and I believe who he is. That's the answer to your faith. That's the answer. No one else has to believe it. No one else has to accept it. You do, because it's a personal relationship. It's not for other people to break down and to decipher and then somehow flip it on you and say you're not, that it'll all get tallied up in the end anyway. But be ready to give an answer for your faith. Because just like everything else, if it's true, it'll stand. If it's false, it'll fall. Just know that. If it's true, it'll stand, and if it's false, it'll fall. It can't help but fall. That's how he designed it. So I want to thank you guys for being on, for staying as long as you did. All 25 of you, 35 at one point, 40 at one point even. I do want to thank you guys for being here. It was a very good discussion, very cordial. One or two heated spots, but what debate isn't? If it didn't get heated, it wouldn't be a debate. I will not deny God. Not gonna happen. People can hope it, wish it, keep wishing. If anything, what this discussion did for me is it really verified for me that my faith that I have is grounded. I mean, I didn't even feel once shaken off of it. I didn't feel shaken at all. And that's verification for me. So wisdom calls to you from the street. Please, 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 please. Find wisdom. Peace.